The three unbreakable signs. How to know if she truly likes you. There is something very interesting about human emotions. When someone likes you, they rarely say it right away. Not because they want to hide it, but because most real feelings show up in very small actions, so small that even they may not realize it. It might be the way they look at you a little longer than usual, the way they remember a tiny detail you once mentioned, or simply how they always seem to, coincidentally, appear wherever you are. Psychology shows that people are very good at hiding their words, but very bad at hiding their unconscious reactions. So if you want to know whether someone has feelings for you, sometimes you don't need to hear what they say at all. Just observe the little, everyday things. 1. Special attention. One of the first signs that quietly appears when a woman truly likes you is something simple, almost ordinary, yet incredibly revealing: special attention. Not loud attention, not dramatic attention. The kind that slips into everyday moments so naturally that many men overlook it entirely. Picture a situation you've probably experienced many times in your life. You're standing with a few friends or coworkers, maybe at a family gathering, maybe at a casual dinner, maybe just chatting during a normal day. The conversation moves around the group. Someone tells a story. Everyone laughs for a moment. Then the topic changes, just like conversations usually do. But watch closely, because in that room there may be one person responding a little differently. Not obviously. Not in a way that screams for attention. Just slightly different. When you begin speaking, she doesn't simply hear the words and move on like everyone else. She listens. Really listens. Her eyes stay on you while you're talking. Her posture shifts a little in your direction. She reacts to the small details of your story, not just the obvious punchline. That is not accidental. That is emotional attention at work. In female psychology, when a woman becomes interested in a man, her mind starts prioritizing him without her even planning to do so. Her brain becomes more alert to what he says, how he says it, and what it reveals about him. She notices the tone of your voice. She catches the small joke hidden in your sentence. She may even smile at something subtle that others in the group completely miss. That is one of the quiet psychology tricks built into human behavior. The mind naturally focuses where the heart becomes curious. Don't dismiss this moment as politeness. Don't assume it is just friendly conversation. Be observant. Be calm. Pay attention to the details. Because when a woman begins to feel drawn to someone, her attention becomes selective. In a room full of voices, her focus keeps returning to you. You might see it in the way she nods while you speak. You might notice it when she asks a follow-up question about something you said earlier, even though everyone else has already forgotten it. That is important. That is female psychology showing itself through quiet actions rather than big declarations. Sometimes it becomes even more obvious later. Hours later, or even days later, she may bring up something you mentioned casually. Maybe you said you enjoy fishing. Maybe you mentioned a trip you once took. Maybe you talked about a hobby you never thought anyone would remember. And suddenly she says, "You mentioned you liked that place. What was it like?" That moment matters. That is emotional attention turning into curiosity. And curiosity is often the first step toward attraction. In many ways, these small signals are more honest than grand gestures. Anyone can laugh at a joke in a group. Anyone can smile politely during a conversation. But remembering the details? That requires interest. That requires mental focus. And the human mind rarely invests that kind of focus unless something or someone has quietly captured its attention. This is why understanding simple psychology tricks and the patterns of female psychology can change the way you see everyday interactions. You begin to notice the subtle shifts, the longer eye contact, the thoughtful question, the way she leans slightly closer when you speak. None of these things are loud signals. They are quiet signals. But quiet signals are often the most genuine. So don't rush to conclusions and don't overanalyze every movement. Just observe. Be aware. Stay present in a conversation. Because when a woman begins giving you that kind of attention, the kind that filters through a crowded room and keeps returning to you, something meaningful may already be beginning to unfold. 2. Presence. Another sign often appears in the most normal, everyday moments, and many men miss it because it doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic signals. It shows up quietly through something simple: presence. Have you ever noticed how some people always seem to be around you? Not in an obvious or forced way, just small, natural moments that keep repeating. You walk into your favorite cafe on a Saturday morning, the place you always go to read the news or enjoy a quiet cup of coffee, and somehow she's there too. Maybe she's sitting near the window. Maybe she's at the counter ordering something simple. Nothing dramatic happens. She doesn't rush over. She doesn't interrupt your morning. But her presence appears again and again, like a familiar background melody in a song you know well. That is not something you should ignore. Be observant. Pay attention to patterns. Because in social psychology, people naturally drift toward those who spark their curiosity and make them feel comfortable. It's a quiet magnetism, a pull that doesn't shout, but gently repeats itself over time. Think about a typical social setting. You're standing in a group conversation at a gathering. The room is full of voices. People are telling stories. Someone mentions a sports game. Someone else brings up a recent trip. Conversations overlap the way they often do. Yet every time you begin speaking, she somehow becomes part of the moment. She shifts slightly closer. She joins the circle. Not loudly, not dramatically, just naturally. She might ask a simple question. She might smile at something you said. And sometimes she doesn't say much at all. But she stays. That is the important part. She stays. A woman who repeatedly places herself within your orbit is revealing something subtle yet meaningful about her interest. Don't overlook it. Be calm and notice the consistency. Because attraction often reveals itself through proximity long before words ever appear. Picture another everyday situation. You walk into a room at work or at a small community event. People are chatting. Some are looking at their phones. Others are discussing weekend plans. You step through the door, and for just a second, someone's eyes shift in your direction. It's brief, almost invisible, but it happens again the next time you arrive somewhere. And again another day. That moment matters. That moment shows awareness. And awareness is often the first stage of attraction. A man who understands how to fall in love with the rhythms of human interaction learns to notice these details. Don't rush past them. Don't assume coincidence every time. Patterns tell stories. Patterns reveal interest. In female behavior, presence often replaces bold signals. Instead of announcing her feelings, she lets proximity speak quietly. She shows up where you are. She joins conversations you are part of. She becomes comfortable sharing the same space. This is one of the simple dynamics a high-value man learns to observe without forcing meaning into every moment. Don't chase. Don't pressure. Be steady. Be aware. A high-value man recognizes when someone consistently chooses to be nearby. That choice carries meaning. Not always immediately, but over time, presence becomes a language of its own. Let's bring this into a very normal, relatable example. Imagine you attend the same gym a few evenings a week. You have your routine. A few minutes on the treadmill. Some weight training. A short stretch before heading home. Over time, you begin noticing someone who often works out around the same time you do. Not every day. Not in a way that seems staged. But frequently enough that you start recognizing her presence. One day, she chooses a treadmill close to yours. Another day, she asks if you're finished with a machine. The conversation is short, simple, friendly, but the pattern repeats. She appears again next week, and again the following week. This is how attraction often grows in the real world. Slowly, through repeated proximity, through comfort with shared space. Men who want to attract women often search for dramatic signs, bold gestures, or clear declarations. But that's not always how human connection begins. Sometimes it starts with presence, with someone choosing to remain nearby even when they could easily drift elsewhere. If you're learning how to fall in love with the quiet signals of everyday life, presence becomes one of the clearest indicators you can observe. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't build fantasies. But don't dismiss the pattern either. Notice it. Respect it. Let it unfold naturally. A high-value man doesn't force attention. He attracts women through calm confidence and awareness of subtle signals. When someone consistently chooses to remain in your space, to join your conversations, to share the same environment without pressure or urgency, that presence is rarely random. It is often the quiet beginning of interest, slowly revealing itself through the ordinary rhythm of everyday life. 3. Another powerful signal lies in the eyes. Another powerful signal lies in the eyes. Words can be carefully chosen. Sentences can be rehearsed. People can decide what they want to say and what they want to hide. But the eyes rarely wait for permission from the mind. The eyes move faster than logic. They react before a person has time to organize their thoughts. That is why the eyes often reveal what the mind hasn't had time to hide. When someone truly likes you, their eyes may show it long before they fully understand what they're feeling. This is not magic. This is human nature. And men who carry calm masculine energy learn to notice these moments without rushing, without forcing meaning, simply by observing. You've probably experienced this without even realizing it. Imagine a quiet evening at a small gathering, maybe a dinner with friends or a casual get-together after work. Conversations move around the table. People laugh. Someone tells a story about a trip or a funny mistake at work. Everything feels relaxed. Then suddenly you feel it, that small moment when someone across the table looks at you just a little longer than expected. Not long enough to feel uncomfortable, just long enough to feel noticeable. That moment matters. Don't brush it away too quickly. Be calm. Be present. Because sometimes a glance that lasts half a second longer than normal carries more meaning than 100 carefully chosen words. Sometimes she holds eye contact just a little longer than usual. It's subtle. It's quiet, but it has weight. That brief pause in eye contact can feel like a tiny bridge forming between two people. You say something. She listens. Her eyes remain on you for a moment longer than simple politeness requires. That is not random. Human attention follows interest, and interest naturally reveals itself through where the eyes rest. A man who understands masculine energy doesn't panic in this moment. He doesn't overreact. He simply acknowledges the connection and stays grounded. That calm presence is something many people find deeply attractive. Other times the signal appears in the opposite direction. You look up and suddenly she looks away quickly, almost as if she was caught doing something she didn't expect to be noticed. This is another honest reaction. A quick glance away often reveals the same curiosity as prolonged eye contact. The difference is simply comfort level. Some people are confident holding a gaze. Others are more shy about it. But both reactions come from the same place, attention. Attention that appeared naturally before the person had time to filter it. These tiny reactions often reveal far more than a polished conversation ever could. And sometimes the moment is even softer. Your eyes meet and she smiles. Not a large dramatic smile meant for a crowd. Just a small one. A quiet, personal smile that appears only for a second. But that second can change the entire mood of the room. That small smile carries warmth. It says, I see you. It says, I noticed you. And that kind of recognition has power. Men who live with the calm awareness taught in old Stoic wisdom understand something important here. Don't rush these moments. Don't turn them into pressure. Let them exist exactly as they are, simple and real. These moments are very brief. That's exactly why they matter so much. A long speech can be rehearsed. A confident statement can be practiced. But a split-second reaction from the eyes is almost impossible to manufacture perfectly. Because it's brief, it's often honest. Because it's quick, it often slips past the filters people normally use to manage their behavior. The eyes act before the mind catches up. And that small window of honesty reveals more than most people realize. However, there is something important many men forget while trying to interpret these signals. They become so focused on analyzing whether a woman likes them that they forget to ask a much more important question. How do you feel when you're around her? This question matters more than any signal you can observe. Don't become trapped in endless analysis. Don't turn human connection into a complicated puzzle. Be present with your own experience. Because attraction is never a one-way street. It lives in a space between two people. Ask yourself something simple. Does time seem to move faster when you talk to her? Maybe you plan to stay for 10 minutes, but suddenly an hour has passed and the conversation is still flowing naturally. That is not accidental. Time tends to move differently when two people genuinely enjoy each other's presence. That experience often reveals more truth than any body language guide ever could. Old Stoic wisdom teaches that awareness of your own feelings is just as important as reading someone else's behavior. You must know your own reactions before trying to interpret another person's. Ask another question. Do you feel comfortable being near her? Not nervous, not pressured, just comfortable. Like the conversation doesn't require effort. Like silence between sentences doesn't feel awkward. Comfort is one of the clearest signs of emotional connection. And comfort often appears quietly, just like eye contact. Masculine energy is not about performing or impressing. It is about presence. A man who carries steady masculine energy allows conversation to unfold naturally. He doesn't force excitement. He allows connection to breathe. And notice this as well. Do ordinary conversations with her somehow stay in your mind longer than usual? Maybe you talked about something simple, work, travel, music, or favorite foods. Nothing dramatic. Nothing life-changing. Yet hours later, you still remember the tone of the conversation. You remember the smile she gave when you said something small. You remember the moment your eyes met across the table. That lingering memory is important. Real emotional moments tend to stay with us because they touch something genuine. Real emotions are rarely dramatic. Movies love grand declarations and sweeping romance. But life is quieter than that. Most real connections begin with ordinary interactions. A conversation that lasts longer than expected. A moment of eye contact across a crowded room. A small smile that somehow makes your entire day feel lighter. These small signals are where attraction often begins. Not in loud gestures, but in quiet recognition. Men who study old Stoic wisdom understand the power of simplicity in these moments. Don't chase signals. Don't pressure the moment. Be calm. Be aware. Let the interaction unfold without rushing toward conclusions. Masculine energy is strongest when it remains steady and relaxed. When you stop trying to control every detail, you begin to notice the natural rhythm of connection. So pay attention to the eyes. They often speak before words have a chance to organize themselves. Notice the glance that lingers. Notice the quick look away. Notice the smile that appears when your eyes meet. These signals may seem small, but they carry honest emotion. At the same time, remember to turn the question back toward yourself. How do you feel in her presence? Do you feel lighter? More relaxed? More engaged in the moment? That is where the real answer lives. Not only in what you see in her eyes, but in what you discover within yourself when those eyes meet yours. The truth is, human emotions are not always obvious in the beginning. Sometimes they begin with very small signals. Moments so ordinary that, if you're not paying attention, they may seem meaningless. But if you look closely, you'll realize something important. Real feelings rarely reveal themselves through grand words or dramatic gestures. They show up in the smallest actions. A glance, a thoughtful question, or simply the way someone seems happier when they're around you. And when two people naturally feel comfortable in each other's presence, you may not need to analyze the signs anymore, because sometimes a genuine connection doesn't need to be explained. You can simply feel it. And yet, even when you understand these signs, there is something deeper that many men eventually discover. Because recognizing attraction is only the beginning. The real question is not simply, does she like me? The real question becomes something more meaningful. What kind of man am I becoming in the presence of that connection? You see, many men spend years trying to decode signals. They analyze texts. They replay conversations in their minds. They wonder whether a glance meant something or whether a smile was just politeness. But attraction, in its healthiest form, is rarely built on decoding alone. It is built on presence. And presence is something you carry within yourself. Think about the men you've met in your life who naturally attract attention without trying too hard. They are not always the loudest in the room. They are not always the ones telling the funniest stories. Sometimes they are the quiet ones, the ones who listen more than they speak, the ones who move calmly through a room as if they have nothing to prove. There is something about that energy that people notice, not because it demands attention, but because it does not need it. And this is where many men begin to misunderstand attraction. They believe they must perform. They believe they must impress. They believe they must constantly say the perfect thing. But real attraction often grows in a much simpler environment. It grows when two people feel comfortable being themselves. Imagine another everyday moment. You're sitting across from someone at a small cafe. The conversation slows down. For a few seconds, neither of you says anything. Many people would rush to fill that silence. They would feel nervous. They would think they must say something clever. But sometimes the most powerful moments happen right there, in the quiet. You take a sip of coffee. She glances up. Your eyes meet. And instead of awkwardness, there is calm. That calm is important, because calm is the foundation of connection. When someone feels relaxed around you, their guard naturally lowers. They begin to reveal small pieces of themselves, not all at once, but slowly, through stories, through jokes, through the little ways they respond to what you say. This is something older generations understood very well. Before dating apps, before endless texting, before constant digital communication, people learned about each other through time spent together. Conversations happened face to face. Moments unfolded naturally. You noticed how someone laughed. You noticed how they treated the people around them. You noticed how they carried themselves. And attraction grew through those observations, not through constant analysis. This is why many of the strongest connections in life begin quietly. They begin through repeated moments. You see someone again. You talk again. You share another story. Each small interaction adds another layer of familiarity. And familiarity builds comfort. Comfort builds trust. And trust opens the door to deeper emotion. Now think about the 3 signs we discussed: special attention, presence, and the language of the eyes. None of them are dramatic. None of them require big declarations. They're subtle, but subtle signals often carry the most honesty, because they appear before someone has time to think about how they want to present themselves. They appear when the mind is relaxed, when the person is simply reacting. But there is something equally important that happens when a woman begins showing these signals. She also begins observing you, because attraction is not just about what she feels. It is about how she experiences your presence. Does she feel relaxed when she talks to you? Does she feel heard when she shares something personal? Does she feel safe being herself? These questions matter more than any body language signal, because attraction may begin with curiosity, but it grows through emotional safety. And emotional safety is created by how a man carries himself. It is created through patience, through calm confidence, through genuine attention. This is why men who try too hard often struggle. They push conversations forward. They rush emotional moments. They feel they must constantly prove themselves. But real connection rarely grows in a rushed environment. It grows in the same way a friendship grows, through time, through shared experiences, through mutual respect. And the men who understand this often find that attraction becomes easier, not because they learned a trick, but because they learned to slow down. They stopped chasing signals. They started paying attention to the person in front of them. And when that shift happens, something interesting occurs. Conversations become more natural. Laughter becomes more genuine. Eye contact becomes more comfortable. The entire interaction becomes lighter. You no longer feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle. You're simply experiencing a moment with another person. And when two people reach that point, when conversation flows without effort, when silence feels comfortable instead of awkward, when eye contact feels natural instead of forced, something meaningful is often already happening. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. And sometimes the most beautiful connections in life begin exactly that way. Not with a grand confession, not with a dramatic declaration, but with a series of small moments that gradually begin to feel important. A conversation that lasts longer than expected. A smile that lingers in your memory. A glance across the room that somehow feels personal. These are the moments many people overlook. because they seem too simple. But simplicity often carries the deepest truth. Human connection was never meant to be complicated. It was meant to be experienced. So the next time you notice these signs, special attention, presence, and the quiet language of the eyes, don't rush to label them. Don't rush to analyze them. Just notice them. Let the interaction breathe. Let the moment unfold naturally. Because sometimes the beginning of something meaningful doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives softly, in the middle of an ordinary day, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, with a person who suddenly feels a little less ordinary than everyone else, and that is often where the most genuine connections begin. And as these small moments continue to unfold, something even more interesting begins to happen beneath the surface. Attraction slowly shifts from simple curiosity into something deeper. At first, the connection may appear light and casual. A few conversations here and there, a few shared laughs, a few glances across a room. But over time, these interactions begin to form a pattern, and patterns are where real emotional signals start to reveal themselves. People rarely invest time and attention in someone they feel completely indifferent about. Attention is one of the most valuable currencies human beings possess. When someone repeatedly gives you their attention, it usually means you occupy a certain space in their mind. Think about the way conversations change when two people begin to feel more comfortable around each other. In the beginning, the topics are often simple and safe. Work, hobbies, favorite places to eat, maybe a funny story about something that happened recently. But as comfort grows, the tone slowly shifts. The questions become a little more thoughtful. She may ask about things that reveal more about you rather than just what you do. What do you enjoy doing when you finally have time to yourself? What kind of places make you feel relaxed? What kind of music reminds you of good memories? These questions may seem ordinary on the surface, but they often carry a deeper purpose. They allow someone to explore your personality without making the conversation feel heavy or serious. When a woman begins asking these kinds of questions, she is often trying to understand how your life feels from the inside. She wants to see how your experiences shape the way you see the world, and this is where many men unknowingly make a mistake. They focus only on giving impressive answers instead of honest ones. They think attraction is built through performance. But genuine curiosity from another person is rarely looking for perfection. It is looking for authenticity. The more relaxed and honest your responses are, the more natural the connection becomes. People feel comfortable when they sense that someone is not trying to impress them, but simply sharing a piece of themselves. Another interesting shift happens in the rhythm of communication. When two people begin enjoying each other's company, they often start creating reasons to interact more often. These reasons are rarely obvious. They appear in simple ways. A quick message to ask how your day went, a comment about something you mentioned earlier, a lighthearted joke that refers back to a previous conversation. These interactions may seem small individually, but together they create continuity. Continuity is one of the strongest foundations of emotional connection. It turns separate conversations into an ongoing story between two people. You might notice this during everyday routines. Perhaps you both frequent the same cafe or attend the same fitness class. At first, you only exchange a few words. Then gradually the conversations grow longer. One day she remembers something you mentioned about a weekend trip. Another day she asks whether you finished a project you talked about earlier. These details matter because they show that your conversations remain in her mind even when you are not physically present. People rarely carry the memory of casual conversations unless those conversations hold some emotional value. At the same time, something subtle begins happening within you as well. The presence of that person starts affecting your mood in ways you might not immediately recognize. You may find yourself looking forward to the next conversation without quite realizing why. You may notice that certain moments of the day feel lighter when you know you might see her. This is the quiet psychology of connection unfolding. It is not dramatic, but it is powerful. Human beings are naturally drawn toward experiences that make them feel understood and appreciated. As these interactions continue, another layer of communication often appears. Humor begins playing a larger role. Shared jokes begin forming between the two of you. Maybe it's a playful comment about a habit one of you has, or a small running joke about something that happened during an earlier conversation. These little moments of humor create familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort opens the door to deeper emotional openness. When someone laughs with you easily and often, it usually means they feel safe around you. Safety is one of the most important emotional conditions for attraction to grow. But there is another shift that many people overlook. As connection deepens, the way two people listen to each other changes. In the beginning, people listen politely. Later, they begin listening with curiosity. But when genuine interest develops, listening becomes something even more meaningful. It becomes attentive. When she listens to you during these later stages, you may notice that she reacts to what you say more thoughtfully. She may ask follow-up questions that show she is trying to understand not just the story, but the feeling behind it. This kind of listening is rare. It is one of the clearest signs that someone values the interaction and the person they are speaking with. Now imagine another everyday scene. You are walking out of a small event, perhaps a dinner or a gathering with mutual friends. The night is winding down. People are saying their goodbyes. As the group slowly separates, she stays beside you for a few extra steps before heading in her own direction. The conversation continues for a moment longer than necessary. Neither of you rushes to end it. These moments may seem insignificant, but they often reveal something important. When someone chooses to extend time with you even briefly, it usually means they enjoy your presence. This is why patience plays such a powerful role in human connection. Many people rush to define relationships before they have fully experienced them. They want clarity immediately. They want to know exactly what the other person feels. But attraction often unfolds like a story that reveals itself chapter by chapter. Each interaction adds a new piece of understanding. Each conversation builds a little more familiarity. Over time, those small pieces create a connection that feels natural rather than forced. And as this connection grows, the three signs we talked about earlier, attention, presence, and the language of the eyes, begin working together in a quiet harmony. She notices you in a crowded room. She chooses to stand near you during conversations. She remembers the details of what you share. Her eyes reveal curiosity before her words ever mention it. None of these signals demand attention individually, but together, they create a pattern that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. At this stage, something very important begins to take shape: respect. When two people repeatedly share positive experiences, they begin respecting each other's character. Respect is the foundation that allows attraction to mature into something meaningful. Without respect, attraction fades quickly. But when respect grows alongside curiosity and comfort, the connection becomes more stable and more genuine. This is also where emotional honesty begins to appear in subtle ways. Conversations may occasionally drift into more personal territory. Perhaps she mentions a challenge she faced recently or a lesson she learned from a past experience. When someone shares these kinds of reflections, it usually means they trust the person they are speaking with. Trust is rarely given instantly. It develops through repeated interactions where both people feel understood rather than judged. And this brings us to one final realization that many people discover only after years of experience. Real connection is rarely built through complicated strategies. It grows through simple moments shared consistently over time. A comfortable conversation, a mutual laugh, a quiet glance across the room. These small experiences slowly create a sense of familiarity that feels natural and reassuring. By the time two people recognize that something meaningful is forming between them, the foundation has already been laid through dozens of these subtle interactions. Attraction didn't appear suddenly. It developed gradually, almost invisibly, through attention, presence, curiosity, and emotional comfort. That is why genuine connection often feels effortless once it reaches that stage. It was never forced to begin with. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether someone truly likes you, don't focus only on what is said directly. Pay attention to the rhythm of your interactions. Notice how often conversations continue naturally. Notice how easily laughter appears. Notice how comfortable silence becomes when you are together. These are the quiet signals that reveal the presence of real connection. Because in the end, attraction is not just about recognizing signs. It is about experiencing a sense of ease and authenticity with another person. When that feeling appears, when conversations feel natural, when attention flows freely, when both people enjoy the simple act of being in the same space, you may realize that the question you started with has already answered itself. And when that happens, something very beautiful begins to emerge. Two people who once felt like strangers gradually start feeling familiar. Not because they forced the connection, but because they allowed it to grow through time, patience, and genuine curiosity about each other's world. That quiet transformation is what turns ordinary moments into meaningful ones. It is what turns a casual interaction into the beginning of something that might last far longer than either person expected. And as that quiet familiarity continues to grow, something even deeper begins to form between two people. It is no longer just curiosity. It is no longer just pleasant conversation. It becomes a kind of emotional rhythm, a natural flow where each interaction seems to build on the one before it. Many men reach this stage without fully realizing what is happening. They simply notice that conversations feel easier. Time seems to move faster. And the presence of that person begins to feel strangely comforting, almost like stepping into a familiar room where you know exactly how the evening will unfold. This stage of connection is subtle, but it is powerful. It is where attraction begins to shift from observation into emotional experience. Up until this point, you might have been paying attention to the signs, the extra attention she gives you, the way she seems to appear in the same places, the quiet language of her eyes. But now something else begins to happen. The interaction itself becomes enjoyable in its own right. You are no longer looking for signals. You are simply enjoying the moment. Picture another ordinary setting. Maybe you're walking out of work in the late afternoon. The day has been long. Your mind is full of the small responsibilities that fill adult life, errands, schedules, tasks waiting at home. And then you run into her unexpectedly. Maybe it's in the hallway. Maybe it's near the parking lot. The conversation that follows might only last a few minutes, but something about it feels refreshing. The day seems to pause for a moment. You laugh about something small. You exchange a few thoughts about your plans for the evening, and then you go your separate ways. Yet as you drive home, you realize that brief interaction stayed with you, not because anything dramatic happened, but because it felt easy. Ease is one of the most reliable indicators of genuine connection. When people feel comfortable around each other, their minds relax. They don't feel the need to perform or impress. They simply exist in the same moment together. That ease often allows the best parts of a person's personality to appear naturally. Humor becomes more spontaneous. Stories become more personal. And the connection becomes more layered with each new interaction. You may begin noticing that conversations gradually extend themselves. A quick greeting turns into a short conversation. A short conversation becomes a longer one the next time you meet. Eventually, the two of you might find yourselves talking long after others have left the room. These moments often happen without planning. They simply unfold because neither person feels rushed to leave. That quiet willingness to stay a little longer is rarely meaningless. Time is one of the most valuable things people can offer each other. There is also another important shift that happens during this stage. The conversations begin carrying emotional texture. Early interactions are often light and surface level. But as comfort grows, people start revealing small pieces of their inner world. Maybe she shares something that happened earlier in the week that frustrated her. Maybe she talks about a place she loves visiting when she needs to relax. Maybe she asks your opinion about something that matters to her. These conversations may still feel casual, but they reveal a growing sense of trust. Trust is rarely built through a single conversation. It grows through repeated moments where both people feel heard and respected. When someone feels comfortable sharing personal thoughts with you, it usually means they believe you will listen without dismissing or judging them. That kind of trust often deepens attraction in ways that simple physical signals cannot. During this time, you might also notice how naturally your attention begins to return to her throughout the day. Perhaps you hear a song that reminds you of a conversation you had together. Maybe you see something funny that you know she would appreciate. These small associations happen when someone begins occupying a meaningful place in your thoughts. And if you pay attention closely, you might notice that the same thing is happening on her side as well. She may bring up topics from earlier conversations. She might remember small details that you casually mentioned days ago. These moments show that your interactions remain present in her mind even when you are not together. Human memory tends to prioritize experiences that carry emotional value. When someone remembers the small things you share, it usually means those moments mattered to them. Another fascinating aspect of this stage is the way humor evolves between two people. Early conversations often include polite laughter and friendly jokes. But as familiarity grows, the humor becomes more personal. You begin developing small inside jokes. Perhaps there is a funny misunderstanding from a previous conversation that you both refer back to occasionally. Maybe there is a shared observation about something happening around you that only the two of you seem to notice. These small shared jokes create a sense of partnership in the conversation. They become tiny signals that say, "We understand this moment in the same way." That feeling of shared perspective is one of the most enjoyable parts of human connection. It makes interactions feel unique and personal. It turns ordinary situations into something memorable simply because you experience them together. As this stage continues, another subtle change may appear in the way you both respond to silence. Early in a connection, silence can feel awkward. People often rush to fill it with new topics or casual comments. But when two people become comfortable around each other, silence begins to feel peaceful rather than uncomfortable. You might be sitting together during a break or walking side by side without speaking for a moment. Yet the quiet doesn't feel strange. It feels natural. That kind of comfortable silence often indicates that the connection has moved beyond surface-level interaction. It shows that both people feel relaxed enough not to constantly manage the conversation. They trust that the interaction will continue naturally when the next thought arrives. There is another everyday example that illustrates this stage beautifully. Imagine you are both attending the same small gathering again, perhaps a friend's birthday or a casual dinner party. Earlier in the evening, everyone is mingling and talking with different groups. But after some time, you notice that the two of you have ended up near each other several times throughout the night. Sometimes you start a conversation. Other times she does. Sometimes you simply share a quick smile across the room when something amusing happens. These small repeated interactions create a kind of invisible thread connecting the two of you throughout the evening. Neither of you needs to make a dramatic gesture to acknowledge it. The connection is simply there, quietly shaping the way the night unfolds. This is also where patience becomes especially important. Many people feel tempted to rush things once they sense attraction developing. They want clarity immediately. They want to know exactly what the other person feels. But emotional connection often grows strongest when it is allowed to develop naturally. Rushing the process can sometimes disrupt the very comfort that made the connection possible in the first place. Instead of pushing for answers too quickly, it can be far more meaningful to continue enjoying the interactions themselves. Let the conversations unfold. Let the humor develop. Let the familiarity deepen. The strongest relationships often grow out of friendships that were allowed to develop without unnecessary pressure. Eventually, there may come a moment when the connection becomes more visible to both of you. It might appear during a longer conversation when the topic becomes more personal. It might appear during a shared laugh that lasts a little longer than usual. Or it might appear during a simple moment when both of you realize that spending time together has become one of the most enjoyable parts of your day. These realizations rarely arrive with dramatic declarations. More often, they appear quietly, almost like a thought that gradually becomes clearer over time. You begin recognizing that the conversations you share are not easily replaced. The comfort you feel in each other's presence is not something you experience with everyone. And the small moments you once considered ordinary now carry a sense of meaning. This is where the three signs we discussed earlier begin revealing their deeper purpose. Special attention showed that her focus naturally returned to you. Presence revealed that she felt comfortable sharing space with you repeatedly. And the language of the eyes revealed the moments when curiosity and warmth slipped through before words could shape them. Together, these signs create the early foundation of something much more meaningful than simple attraction. They create the beginning of understanding. Two people slowly learning how each other thinks, laughs, reacts, and experiences the world. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this entire process is how quietly it unfolds. No grand speeches, no dramatic turning points, just a series of everyday moments gradually revealing that two lives may be starting to move in the same direction. When you reach that stage, you may realize that the original question, "Does she like me?" has slowly become less important. What matters more is the connection you have already experienced together, the comfort, the laughter, the shared understanding that developed naturally over time. Because genuine attraction rarely arrives as a sudden explosion of emotion. It grows gradually through attention, curiosity, patience, and mutual respect. It grows through the simple act of two people choosing to keep talking, keep listening, and keep sharing the small moments that make life interesting. And when you look back at how it all began, you may realize something surprising. The signs were there from the very beginning. A glance that lasted a second longer. A conversation that felt a little more engaging than usual. A familiar presence appearing in the same places again and again. At the time, those moments may have seemed ordinary. But sometimes the most meaningful connections in life begin exactly that way, quietly, patiently, and almost invisibly. Until one day you look at the person standing beside you and realize that what once felt like coincidence has slowly become something much more meaningful. Women naturally go toward men who have this kind of energy, psychology tricks. Here is a truth that many men go through life without ever hearing. Attraction, in most cases, does not begin with appearance, wealth, or social status. Those things may open a door, but they rarely create genuine interest. What women instinctively respond to is something far less obvious and far more powerful, a man's energy. As the writer James Allen once said, calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. And that calm inner strength is exactly the kind of energy that quietly draws people in. You have probably witnessed this without realizing it. A man enters a room and somehow the atmosphere shifts. He is not necessarily the most handsome man there, nor the richest, nor the most stylish. Yet people notice him. Women feel at ease around him. They smile when he speaks. They lean closer to hear what he says. At the same time, another man who might appear more impressive on paper can stand in the same room and remain almost invisible. The difference is not what these men possess on the outside. The difference is how they carry themselves. For many years, men have been taught the wrong lesson about attraction. They are told to impress, to chase approval, to prove their value again and again. But the strange irony is this: the more a man tries to impress, the more he often weakens the very thing he hopes to create. Effort that feels forced signals uncertainty, and uncertainty quietly pushes attraction away. Women tend to move toward a very different type of presence. It is a calm, steady, self-assured energy, not arrogance, not loud displays of dominance. Instead, it is the quiet confidence of a man who knows who is comfortable in his own skin, and who is moving through life with direction. This kind of energy communicates stability, emotional control, and purpose without needing to announce itself. What makes this presence powerful is that it cannot be performed like a trick. Over time, people sense whether it is real. It appears in the smallest details, in the way a man speaks without rushing, in how he listens without trying to dominate the conversation, in how he handles pressure without losing composure, and in how relaxed he remains with himself, regardless of the environment around him. In this discussion, we will explore the specific qualities that create this kind of grounded energy. Think of it as a deeper guide to understanding attraction, not the surface-level advice that tells men to chase attention, but the deeper principles that shape presence. Because when a man understands the energy women naturally respond to, he discovers something surprising. Attraction is rarely something you run after. More often, it is something that quietly begins to appear when you learn how to carry yourself. 1. Stop trying to impress women. Stop trying to impress women. That sentence alone may sound strange to many men, especially those who grew up believing that attraction is a performance. For decades, men have been told that if you want a woman to like you must prove yourself, show your achievements, show your money, show your intelligence, show your humor, put on your best version, and present it like a carefully polished product. It sounds logical on the surface. After all, if you want someone to choose you assume you must demonstrate why you are worth choosing. But here is the quiet truth that many experienced men eventually discover through life, relationships, and sometimes painful lessons. The harder you try to impress a woman, the less attractive you often become. This idea sits at the heart of many misunderstood psychology tricks about attraction and female psychology. It is not about manipulation. It is not about playing games. It is about understanding how human emotions naturally respond to energy, presence, and authenticity. When a man constantly tries to impress, he unknowingly sends a message that most women sense almost immediately. The message is subtle but powerful. I need your approval. And that energy changes the entire dynamic of the interaction. The conversation stops feeling natural. Instead of two people discovering each other, it becomes a performance. The man becomes the entertainer, the salesman, the one trying to prove his value. And the woman becomes the evaluator, the one silently deciding whether the performance is good enough. Attraction rarely grows in that kind of atmosphere. It creates tension. It creates pressure. And pressure suffocates curiosity. One of the most overlooked lessons in female psychology is that attraction often grows in spaces that feel relaxed and emotionally safe, not in spaces that feel like additions. Think about how many men behave when they meet a woman they find attractive. Suddenly, their voice changes. Their posture stiffens. They begin telling stories designed to impress. They mention their job title. They casually drop the price of their car. They highlight their travel stories. They try harder to be funny. They talk faster. They check her reactions constantly. Is she smiling? Is she impressed? Does she like me? In their minds, they believe they are demonstrating value. But what they're actually revealing is something very different: uncertainty. Not because they lack achievements, but because they feel the need to display those achievements for approval. And people, especially women who are emotionally perceptive, feel that energy quickly. Here is where many so-called psychology tricks about attraction misunderstand the real principle. The goal is not to hide your strengths. The goal is not to pretend you have nothing to offer. The real shift is internal. Don't perform your value. Live it. Don't broadcast it. Embody it. That is a completely different energy. A man who feels secure about who he is does not rush to advertise his accomplishments. He shares them naturally when they fit the conversation. He does not force them into every moment. He does not need constant signals of approval. He is comfortable in silence, comfortable in pauses, comfortable allowing the conversation to unfold without controlling every impression. That calmness is often the real attraction trigger. Female psychology often responds more strongly to emotional atmosphere than to external displays of status. Of course, success, ambition, and intelligence matter. But they matter most when they are expressed naturally, not when they are pushed forward like a sales pitch. Women tend to feel drawn to men who seem grounded in themselves, men who appear relaxed in their own skin, men who are present in the moment rather than trying to engineer every reaction. This is why many men are confused when they see a man who is not the richest, not the most handsome, and not the loudest in the room still attracting attention. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is simply the quiet power of emotional stability. One of the most misunderstood psychology tricks in relationships is the power of non-performance. Don't try to win every moment. Don't try to impress with every sentence. Be curious instead. Ask questions that show genuine interest. Listen carefully to what the other person says. Let the conversation breathe. That is not a tactic. That is the natural behavior of someone who feels secure. When a man listens deeply, he signals something powerful without saying a word. I am comfortable here. I do not need to prove myself. And that subtle message often makes people feel relaxed around him. You must understand something important about attraction. People are not only responding to what you say, they're responding to how you feel about yourself while you say it. Confidence is emotional, not theatrical. Many men attempt to imitate confidence by speaking louder, boasting more, or exaggerating their experiences. But real confidence rarely needs exaggeration. It feels calm. It feels steady. It feels natural. That is why women often describe attractive men using words like relaxed, grounded, comfortable, or genuine. Those words reveal the deeper structure of female psychology. Imagine a small social gathering. Nothing formal. Just a few people talking in a living room. Two men are there. The first man spends most of the evening describing his achievements. He talks about his job success. He explains how expensive his car is. He tells long stories about his travels. Every story circles back to one point. Look at what I have accomplished. The second man behaves differently. He listens more than he talks. He asks people about their experiences. When he shares his own stories, he tells them casually, without exaggeration. He laughs evilly. He seems comfortable even when he is not the center of attention. Now observe the room after an hour. Something interesting usually happens. People begin gravitating toward the second man, not because he demanded attention, but because conversation feels easier around him. There is less pressure. There is more authenticity. The first man may have more impressive achievements, but the second man has something more emotionally attractive: presence. This simple scenario reveals one of the most powerful insights in female psychology and human connection. People are drawn to emotional comfort more than emotional performance. This is why many experienced relationship coaches repeat a similar idea when discussing psychology tricks about attraction. Don't chase admiration, create comfort. That difference changes everything. Admiration often fades quickly. Comfort grows slowly but becomes powerful over time. When someone feels relaxed around you, they associate your presence with positive emotions. They feel understood. They feel safe expressing themselves. They feel curious to know you better. That curiosity is the quiet beginning of attraction. Another common mistake men make is over-explaining themselves. They feel the need to justify every opinion, every choice, every life decision. They fear that if they do not explain enough, the woman might misunderstand them. But constant explanation can create the opposite effect. It suggests that you are trying too hard to control how you are perceived. Confidence allows room for mystery. Not because you are hiding something, but because you are comfortable letting people discover you gradually. Be clear about your values. Be honest about your experiences. But don't rush the process of being known. Attraction often grows in layers. Female psychology tends to appreciate emotional depth revealed slowly. When every detail of your life is presented immediately, there is nothing left to explore. But when a man reveals himself naturally through conversation and shared experiences, curiosity builds. Curiosity is one of the strongest emotional drivers in how to fall in love. Many people believe love begins with intense passion or dramatic moments. Sometimes it does, but very often love begins quietly. It begins when two people feel unexpectedly comfortable together, when conversation flows easily, when silence does not feel awkward, when laughter appears without effort. Those moments rarely come from someone trying to impress. They come from someone who is simply present. So if you want to understand deeper psychology tricks related to attraction, remember this principle. Don't perform value, embody value. Don't chase attention, create connection. Don't talk constantly about yourself, invite others to share their world. These behaviors may look simple, but they align closely with how female psychology processes emotional signals. Another important insight about how to fall in love is the role of emotional independence. A man who feels complete within his own life carries a different presence. He enjoys conversation, but he does not depend on it for validation. He appreciates attention, but he does not chase it. He expresses interest, but he is not desperate for approval. That emotional balance makes interactions feel lighter. And lightness invites curiosity. Don't misunderstand this idea. Being relaxed does not mean being passive or uninterested. It means being grounded. You can show interest clearly. You can express attraction honestly, but do it from a place of calm confidence, not from a place of anxiety. Anxiety pushes energy outward in a way that feels demanding. Confidence allows energy to flow naturally. When men study psychology tricks about attraction, they sometimes search for clever lines, calculated behaviors, or strategic timing. But the deeper truth of female psychology is much simpler. Attraction often responds to emotional authenticity. It grows when someone feels comfortable being themselves. That authenticity cannot be faked for long. It comes from self-respect. You must build a life that feels meaningful to you. A life with goals, friendships, interests, and purpose. When a man builds that kind of life, his interactions with women change automatically. He is no longer approaching every conversation as a test of his worth. He is simply sharing moments with another human being. Ironically, that relaxed mindset often makes him far more attractive. Many long-term couples describe their first conversations in similar ways. They say things like, "It just felt easy," or "We talked for hours without trying," or "I felt like I could be myself." Those descriptions reveal the emotional conditions where attraction grows strongest. Ease, curiosity, authenticity. Those conditions are closely connected to the deeper patterns of female psychology and the natural process of how to fall in love. So here is the simple lesson hidden inside all these ideas. Stop trying to impress women. Be present instead. Be curious. Be grounded in your own life. Let your achievements speak naturally when the moment calls for them. Don't force them into every conversation. Don't chase approval. Let connection unfold naturally. Confidence is not about proving your worth every moment. It is about feeling comfortable enough that you do not need to. When a man reaches that state, something subtle but powerful changes in his energy. Conversations feel lighter. People feel relaxed around him. And women often become curious about him without knowing exactly why. In the end, attraction rarely belongs to the man who tries hardest to impress. It often belongs to the man who is most comfortable simply being himself. And that quiet authenticity is one of the most powerful psychology tricks hidden inside human connection, female psychology, and the mysterious process of how to fall in love. 2. Attention is not attraction. Many men quietly carry a misunderstanding that shapes the way they approach women, relationships, and even themselves. It sounds simple, yet it changes everything once you truly understand it. Attention is not attraction. These two things may look similar on the surface, but they live in completely different worlds. A woman can talk with you, laugh with you, text you late at night, and even spend long hours in your company without feeling the deeper spark of attraction. Conversation is not proof. Time together is not proof. Even compliments are not proof. Human beings enjoy attention. Everyone does. It feels good to be noticed. It feels good when someone listens closely, remembers small details, or makes you feel important for a moment. Women are no different. They can genuinely enjoy a man's attention while still feeling no romantic pull toward him. And here is where many men become confused. They see friendliness and interpret it as attraction. They see comfort and assume desire. But comfort and desire are not the same thing. One is warm. The other is magnetic. A high-value man understands this difference clearly, and because he understands it, he behaves differently from the average man who is simply hoping to attract women through effort alone. Think about how many men fall into the same pattern. They meet a woman. They feel excited. Immediately, they begin offering more and more attention, believing that attention is the key ingredient that creates attraction. They send long messages. They check in constantly. They reply within seconds. They make themselves available every hour of the day. In their minds, this looks like effort. It looks like kindness. It looks like dedication. But attraction rarely grows in an environment where one person gives everything too quickly. Do not rush to give unlimited attention to someone you barely know. Be patient. Be calm. Be centered in your own life. That is where true masculine energy begins to show itself. When a man floods every moment with attention, something subtle happens. Mystery disappears. Anticipation disappears. The interaction becomes predictable. And predictability often drains the emotional spark that attraction needs in order to grow. Imagine a garden. If you water a plant every few minutes all day long, the plant does not grow faster. In fact, you may damage it. Growth requires rhythm, sunlight and shade, water and rest. Attraction works in a very similar way. It grows through moments of connection followed by moments of space. It grows through curiosity, through small discoveries, through emotional tension that slowly unfolds over time. That is why a high-value man does not try to force attraction through constant attention. He understands that attraction is not something he can push. It is something that develops when two people gradually learn about each other while both still live full lives of their own. Many men believe that if they simply give more attention than the next man, they will win the woman's interest. But this belief often leads them into a quiet trap. When attention becomes endless, it can shift the dynamic of the relationship. The man slowly becomes a source of validation rather than a source of romantic tension. He becomes the person who is always there, always available, always responding. And ironically, this can reduce the sense of excitement that fuels attraction. Do not misunderstand this message. This does not mean ignoring women. It does not mean pretending to be distant. It does not mean playing games. Those behaviors come from insecurity. Instead, the message is simple. Do not overinvest too early. Be interested, but remain grounded in your own life. Continue your routines. Continue your goals. Continue building the life that makes you who you are. That is authentic masculine energy, and it is one of the quiet qualities that naturally helps a man attract women without forcing anything. Picture two different scenarios. In the first scenario, a man meets a woman and immediately begins texting her throughout the entire day. Every morning, he sends a good morning message. Every evening, he checks in again. If she takes longer to reply, he sends another message just to keep the conversation alive. At first, she may enjoy the attention. It feels flattering. It feels kind. But after a while, something subtle changes. The conversation begins to feel predictable. There is no space for curiosity. She already knows that if she looks at her phone, another message will be waiting. The mystery disappears. The emotional rhythm disappears. And without realizing it, the excitement begins to fade. Now imagine a second man. He enjoys talking with her. He laughs. He shares stories. When they speak, he is present. He listens carefully. He responds thoughtfully. But he also has a life that continues moving forward when the conversation ends. He has responsibilities, hobbies, friends, ambitions. His attention is genuine, but it is not endless. Their conversations feel balanced. When they talk, the moment feels alive. When the conversation ends, there is space for anticipation to grow. This is the difference between chasing attention and allowing attraction to develop naturally. The second man is not trying to prove anything. He is simply living his life with steady masculine energy, and that calm self-direction is exactly what many women find intriguing. One of the quiet secrets of a high-value man is that he does not measure his worth by how much attention he receives or gives. He measures it by the quality of the life he is building. When a man builds a life filled with purpose, curiosity, discipline, and self-respect, something powerful happens. His attention becomes valuable because it is limited. It is intentional. It is offered, not scattered. And when attention is offered with intention rather than desperation, it carries weight. That weight creates intrigue. Intrigue invites attraction. Think about the way people respond to scarcity in many areas of life. A book that everyone can read anytime may sit on the shelf for years, but a rare book suddenly feels fascinating. A place that is always open may feel ordinary, but a place that opens only on certain nights suddenly becomes exciting. Human psychology responds strongly to value and rarity. This does not mean you must pretend to be scarce. It simply means you must respect your own time and energy enough not to give them away automatically. Be selective with your attention. Be thoughtful with your communication. Be genuine in your interest. These behaviors naturally signal the presence of a high-value man, and that energy can quietly attract women far more effectively than endless texting ever could. Another important detail often overlooked is emotional pacing. Healthy attraction grows when two people slowly reveal themselves. when conversation deepens step by step, when laughter turns into trust and trust slowly turns into emotional connection. But when everything is offered immediately, the experience loses its rhythm. Imagine reading a mystery novel where every secret is revealed on the first page. The story would end before it even began. Relationships follow a similar emotional structure. Curiosity leads to conversation. Conversation leads to connection. Connection leads to attraction. Do not skip the process. Respect the pace. Be the man who enjoys discovery. Ask questions. Share stories. Listen carefully. But do not rush to fill every silent moment with messages. Silence is not the enemy. Sometimes silence is the space where curiosity grows. And curiosity is one of the quiet engines of attraction. When a woman wonders about you, she becomes emotionally engaged in the interaction. But when every moment is already filled with attention, there is nothing left to wonder about. This is why calm confidence is one of the most powerful expressions of masculine energy. A man who is calm does not panic when there is a pause in conversation. He does not rush to send 3 messages if the first one is unanswered. He understands that people have lives, responsibilities, and rhythms of their own. His patience communicates self-respect. His composure communicates emotional stability. These qualities are far more attractive than constant digital noise. Be clear about one thing. Attention is easy to give. Anyone can send messages all day long. Anyone can compliment constantly. Anyone can make themselves available every minute. But attraction is different. Attraction grows from emotional tension, curiosity, connection, and respect. It cannot be forced through sheer quantity of attention. A high-value man understands this deeply, which is why he focuses less on chasing reactions and more on living a meaningful life. If you truly want to attract women, build a life that excites you first. Invest your time in learning new skills. Strengthen your health. Expand your interests. Build friendships that energize you. Pursue work that challenges you. When your life is full, your interactions with women naturally become lighter, more playful, and more authentic. You are no longer seeking validation. You are simply sharing moments with someone new. That shift changes everything. Women can sense when a man is chasing approval, just as they can sense when a man is comfortable with himself. The difference is subtle but powerful. The man who chases approval often overwhelms the interaction with attention. The man who respects himself offers attention thoughtfully, creating space for attraction to develop on its own. So remember the core idea. Attention is not attraction. Do not confuse the two. Be kind. Be engaged. But do not give your entire emotional energy to someone you have just met. Allow time to do its work. Allow curiosity to grow. Allow connection to develop naturally. When you approach relationships with calm patience and grounded masculine energy, you create the conditions where genuine attraction can appear. And when that happens, something beautiful unfolds. 2 people meet not out of need, but out of interest. Not out of pressure, but out of curiosity. The conversations feel lighter. The moments feel richer. The connection grows step by step. That is the environment where real attraction lives. That is the environment where a high-value man naturally begins to attract women without forcing anything at all. If this message speaks to you, remember this. Stop chasing attention. Start building a life that naturally creates attraction. And if you're ready to live like that, drop a comment right now. I don't chase attention. I build attraction. Write it in the comments so you remind yourself what kind of man you're becoming. Then like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep learning how to move through life with calm confidence, purpose, and self-respect. 3. Women notice calm confidence. Women notice calm confidence far more than most men realize, and understanding this truth can completely change how you move through life and relationships. Many men mistakenly believe confidence must be loud, flashy, or constantly trying to dominate the room, but real attraction rarely works that way, because the kind of energy that naturally draws people in is quiet, steady, and grounded. It is what many thinkers across centuries have described as inner composure, a mindset deeply rooted in old Stoic wisdom. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That single sentence captures the heart of calm confidence better than any modern dating advice ever could. Calm confidence means you are comfortable with yourself even when no one is applauding, even when the room grows quiet, even when attention is not centered on you, and that is precisely why it stands out so powerfully in today's fast, noisy world. In modern social environments, many men feel pressure to perform every second, to impress, to entertain, to prove something. But that pressure creates tension, and tension is felt instantly by everyone around you. A racing mind leads to rushed speech, forced jokes, nervous gestures, and subtle signals that reveal insecurity. Calm confidence works in the opposite direction. It begins with an iron mind, a disciplined mental state where your sense of worth does not depend on immediate reactions from others. You are present, relaxed, aware, and that presence alone becomes magnetic. You do not rush to fill every silence in conversation because silence does not threaten you. You do not panic when a joke fails because your self-respect does not depend on a laugh. You do not scramble to prove intelligence, status, or charm because your value is not a performance. This mindset echoes the core message behind Stoicism win, the philosophy that teaches men to build stability from within rather than chasing validation from outside. When a man embodies this calm steadiness, people feel it before he even speaks. It appears in posture, tone of voice, pacing, eye contact, and the quiet certainty in his movements. And women notice it immediately because calm emotional energy signals safety, reliability, and maturity. Modern life is full of chaos, constant noise, and endless social comparison through phones and social media. So the man who carries calm presence becomes rare. Rarity creates attention without effort. Think about the difference between someone who is constantly seeking approval and someone who moves through the room at his own pace. The first man is chasing reactions, scanning faces for validation, adjusting his behavior to gain acceptance. The second man is centered, grounded, guided by internal stability. Which energy feels stronger? Which energy feels more trustworthy? The answer is obvious. Calm confidence does not come from pretending to be fearless. It comes from understanding that your identity is not threatened by small social outcomes. Another Stoic thinker, Seneca, once said, "He who is brave is free." That bravery does not mean shouting louder than everyone else. It means remaining steady when situations become uncertain. Many men struggle in social situations because they overthink every interaction. They analyze every sentence before speaking. They worry about sounding impressive enough, interesting enough, attractive enough. That mental pressure creates a loop of anxiety. But calm confidence breaks that loop because it removes the need to impress. You simply show up as you are, speak naturally, listen carefully, and allow the moment to unfold. The conversation becomes easier because you are not forcing it. The energy becomes lighter because you are not trying to control it. And ironically, that relaxed authenticity often makes you far more engaging than any rehearsed charm ever could. This is why developing an iron mind is essential for any man who wants to build real presence. An iron mind means emotional discipline, the ability to remain steady regardless of external reactions. If someone agrees with you, you remain calm. If someone disagrees with you, you remain calm. If attention comes your way, you remain calm. If attention fades, you remain calm. This consistency signals deep self-trust. And trust in yourself is the foundation of calm confidence. The philosophy behind Stoicism emphasizes this exact principle, reminding men that inner stability creates outer strength. When you are anchored internally, you stop chasing approval and start living intentionally. 4. The emotionally self-controlled. The emotionally self-controlled. This is one of the most quietly powerful psychology tricks a man can understand if he truly wants to attract women and build meaningful relationships. Many men believe attraction comes from saying the right lines, showing off success, or constantly trying to impress, but female psychology often works in a deeper and more subtle way. Women pay close attention to emotional behavior. They watch how a man reacts when things go wrong. They notice whether he becomes irritated over small inconveniences or whether he remains steady and thoughtful. That is where true attraction begins. Emotional self-control signals maturity, reliability, and inner balance. It tells the world that this is a man who can handle life without creating unnecessary drama around him. Don't rush to react when something annoys you. Don't allow frustration to control your words. Instead, pause. Think. Respond with calm intention. That is the discipline that separates boys from men. In female psychology, emotional steadiness creates a sense of comfort and safety. A woman may not consciously analyze it, but she feels it immediately. When a man remains composed in stressful moments, his presence becomes grounding rather than exhausting. That is attractive in a very natural way. Think about everyday situations. A plan changes unexpectedly. A disagreement happens. Someone criticizes you. Many men react instantly with defensiveness or frustration. But the man who understands psychology tricks knows a better path. He breathes. He listens. He responds slowly and thoughtfully. This behavior communicates something powerful without saying a word. I am in control of myself. And control of self is one of the most compelling qualities in how to fall in love from a psychological perspective. Women often gravitate toward men who make them feel emotionally safe. Not because those men are perfect, but because they are predictable in the best way. They do not explode with anger. They do not collapse under pressure. They stay balanced. That balance creates trust, and trust is the foundation of how to fall in love in real life. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wisely said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This timeless insight reveals one of the most overlooked psychology tricks in relationships. Attraction is not only about appearance or status. It is about how a man carries his inner world. Be the man who remains calm when others become tense. Be the man who listens before speaking. Be the man who chooses patience over impulse. That is not weakness. That is discipline. In modern life, emotional challenges appear everywhere. Stress at work, traffic on the road, unexpected rejection, small frustrations that can easily trigger reactions. But the man who understands female psychology does not allow every situation to disturb his peace. He treats emotional control as a daily practice. When something irritating happens, he observes it without letting it dominate his behavior. When criticism arrives, he evaluates it calmly instead of taking it personally. This level of self-command creates a quiet authority that people feel immediately. And women notice it more than most men realize. Many men believe attraction comes from constant effort, talking more, doing more, proving more. But often the real psychology tricks involve doing less. Less reacting. Less chasing approval. Less emotional noise. Instead, show steadiness. Show calm confidence. When a woman sees a man who stays centered during conflict, who speaks thoughtfully instead of impulsively, she senses something rare. That emotional composure suggests he will not create unnecessary chaos in a relationship. That matters deeply in female psychology because emotional chaos is exhausting. A calm man feels like stability in a world that is often unpredictable. That stability naturally supports how to fall in love over time. And this trait cannot be faked for long. Anyone can pretend to be calm for a few minutes, but true emotional discipline reveals itself in everyday situations. It shows in how you respond to delays, disagreements, misunderstandings, and pressure. Don't try to control everything around you. Control yourself. That is the real power. Be the man who pauses before reacting. Be the man who listens before arguing. Be the man who maintains composure even when things do not go his way. These simple habits may sound small, yet they're some of the most effective psychology tricks for building attraction and respect. Because at the end of the day, emotional control is not only attractive, it is inspiring. People feel drawn to those who remain balanced in difficult moments. Women feel comfortable around men who do not bring emotional storms into every conversation. That sense of peace creates connection. And connection is the real pathway in how to fall in love. Not through pressure, not through performance, but through calm presence, quiet confidence, and the steady strength that comes from mastering your own mind. Before we end this video, let me speak to you directly for a moment, my friend. If there is one message I truly hope you carry with you from today, it is this: stop chasing approval and start building a life that commands respect. For years, many men were taught that attraction comes from impressing, pleasing, and constantly trying to prove their worth. Work harder, say the right things, do more, give more. But the reality is very different. Real attraction does not grow from effort alone. It grows from the energy you carry. Women don't just hear your words, they feel your presence. They notice whether a man is calm or anxious, grounded or reactive, focused on his purpose or desperate for attention. And the truth is simple: when a man becomes centered in his own life, when he stops seeking validation from others and instead builds discipline, direction, and emotional strength, something powerful begins to happen. His presence changes. His energy becomes steady. His decisions become clear. He is no longer trying to convince anyone of his value because his life already reflects it. And that kind of energy is naturally attractive, not because it tries to be, but because confidence that comes from self-mastery is impossible to fake. So here is my sincere advice to you: focus on your purpose. Build a life that excites you. Take care of your health, your mindset, and your discipline. Learn to be calm under pressure. Learn to enjoy your own path. When you do that, you will notice something interesting. You stop chasing attention, and yet attention begins to come to you naturally. People respect you more. Conversations change. Women feel more comfortable around you, not because you forced it, but because your energy tells a different story. A story of stability, strength, and quiet confidence. And that is the foundation of real attraction. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I truly appreciate every one of you who watches these videos and takes the journey of self-improvement seriously. If this message resonated with you, I would really like to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where attention didn't actually mean attraction? Or a moment when simply changing your mindset or your energy changed the way people responded to you? Share your experience down in the comments. I read them, and I value the stories you share because we are all learning together here. Keep working on yourself. Keep building your life with patience and discipline. And remember this simple truth: attraction cannot be forced, but the right energy can make it happen naturally. Take care, stay steady, and I'll see you in the next video. This means she misses you too much, but she's hiding her true feelings. Psychology tricks. Listen carefully. Somewhere right now, there is a woman thinking about you more often than she ever admits. Yet, if you asked her directly, she would probably smile, brush it off, or quickly change the subject. She will not send the first message. She will not openly reveal what is happening inside her heart. And that silence confuses many men. They assume distance means indifference. They assume quietness means she has moved on. But that assumption is often completely wrong. The truth is, there is a certain behavior many men misread. In fact, most men see it as rejection. They believe it means she is not interested. But psychologically, that very behavior can be the clearest sign she misses you deeply. It is subtle. It is indirect. And because it does not look like affection on the surface, men overlook it entirely. The famous writer Victor Hugo once said, "The greatest happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved." Yet people do not always show love in obvious ways, especially when emotions feel risky. Here is something every mature man must understand. Women rarely express missing someone the same way men do. A man may call. He may say it openly. He may try to solve the distance immediately. But many women protect their feelings differently. They hide them behind calm behavior. They wrap them in silence. Sometimes they even act colder than usual just to maintain emotional control. And this is where things become complicated. A man misreads that restraint as lack of interest. So he pulls away. He stops reaching out. He assumes the connection was never real. But at that exact moment, she may actually be thinking about him more than ever. Psychology shows that when someone feels deeply attached yet uncertain about the outcome, they often protect themselves by appearing neutral. It is not manipulation. It is emotional self-defense. She does not want to look vulnerable. She does not want to feel exposed if the feeling is not returned. That is why many strong connections quietly disappear. Not because the feelings were absent, but because both people misunderstood the signals. In a moment, we will break down the subtle psychological patterns that reveal when she truly misses you, even while pretending everything is normal. When you understand these signs, you will stop doubting yourself. You will stop guessing. And more importantly, you will see the difference between real emotional distance and hidden affection. But first, there is one important question every wise man must ask. If she really misses you this much, why is she trying so hard to hide it? And what is she truly afraid of revealing? 1. The dark psychology behind why she's hiding her feelings. Picture this clearly. She sees your name appear on her phone. For a brief second, her heart jumps. There is curiosity. There is excitement. There is that quiet smile she would never show you. But then something interesting happens. She doesn't respond right away. She pauses. She waits. She tells herself to slow down. She reads the message again and again, thinking about what it means, what it might lead to, and most importantly, what it might reveal about her feelings. Many men misunderstand this moment. They assume silence means indifference. They assume distance means lack of interest. But that is rarely the full story. In the world of female psychology, emotions are rarely displayed in straight lines. They move in circles and signals, in quiet tests that reveal more about you than about her. This is where most men become confused, and this is exactly where the subtle psychology tricks of attraction begin to unfold. Because when a woman feels something real growing inside her, when she feels that early spark that could turn into something deeper, she becomes careful, not careless. Careful. That is an important difference. Do not misunderstand restraint as rejection. Do not mistake thoughtfulness for coldness. Be calm. Be observant. Be patient. That is the first rule if you want to understand female psychology in the real world. Now let's go deeper, because what's happening inside her mind is far more complex than a simple game of playing hard to get. Her brain is balancing excitement with caution. Her emotions are saying, "This man interests me." But another part of her mind whispers, "Slow down. Protect yourself. Watch him carefully." And that inner dialogue creates behaviors that many men misread completely. You see, attraction is not only about feelings. It is also about safety, emotional safety, psychological safety. Women, often without even realizing it, evaluate whether a man can remain steady when emotions begin to rise. They want to know if he is calm or reactive, grounded or anxious, centered or easily shaken. This is where the quiet testing begins. Not manipulation, not deception, testing, the small, almost invisible kind. She might delay her response. She might keep her tone casual. She might even act slightly less interested than she truly feels. And here is the paradox that surprises many men. When a woman begins to fall for someone, her behavior often becomes more controlled, not more expressive. This is not because the feelings are smaller. It is because they are becoming more important. That is one of the most misunderstood truths within female psychology. When emotions grow meaningful, people become careful about how they reveal them. Think about it for a moment. When something doesn't matter, you act freely. But when something truly matters, you become thoughtful, strategic, and aware of every move. Women are no different. In fact, evolutionary psychology suggests that emotional caution has been part of human survival for thousands of years. Long before modern dating existed, choosing the wrong partner could mean real consequences for safety, stability, and family survival. So the mind developed natural filters, natural checks, natural psychology tricks that help determine whether someone is truly strong enough emotionally to handle deeper connection. That ancient pattern still shows up today in modern relationships. And here is where many men unknowingly sabotage themselves. When she pulls back slightly, they panic. They overanalyze. They send multiple messages. They demand reassurance. They try to force clarity too quickly. Don't do that. Resist that urge. It signals instability. It signals insecurity. It tells her that your emotional center depends on her reaction. And that is exactly what she is unconsciously testing. Remember this principle. Attraction grows in emotional stability, not emotional urgency. Be steady. Be relaxed. Be confident in your own life, regardless of how fast someone else responds. That is the energy that quietly passes her test. Because her mind is asking a silent question, if I create a little distance, will he remain grounded? Most men answer that question incorrectly. They either chase desperately or disappear dramatically. Both reactions reveal the same thing. They show that her behavior controls his emotional state. And that is not attractive. What works instead is calm awareness. Understand the pattern. Recognize the signal. Do not react impulsively. Simply continue living your life with purpose and direction. That is how the dynamic changes. When she sees that her small pullback does not shake your confidence, curiosity replaces caution. Respect replaces hesitation. And suddenly, the entire interaction shifts. This is where the deeper layer of psychology tricks becomes visible. The moment she realizes you are not easily destabilized, she begins to feel safer revealing more interest. Not all at once. Gradually. Slowly. Subtly. Maybe she responds a little faster next time. Maybe her messages become slightly longer. Maybe she starts asking questions about your day, your plans, your thoughts. These signals are not random. They are signs that her internal evaluation is changing. This is why understanding female psychology is so important if you want to build meaningful attraction instead of confusing emotional games. Many people talk about learning how to fall in love, but they miss an important step. Love rarely grows in chaotic emotional environments. It grows where calm strength exists. It grows where someone can handle uncertainty without losing composure. It grows where patience replaces pressure. If you truly want to understand how to fall in love with someone in a healthy way, you must first understand emotional timing. Feelings develop at different speeds for different people. Some express early, some express slowly. Women often fall into the second category because their emotional filtering system is designed to protect long-term investment. And once you see this clearly, you stop reacting emotionally to every small signal. Instead, you begin observing patterns. You notice consistency. You recognize when hesitation is actually interest wrapped in caution. That awareness alone separates calm, mature men from reactive ones. And here is another truth most people never mention when talking about how to fall in love. The strongest attraction rarely comes from constant attention. It comes from balanced presence. Be there, but don't hover. Show interest, but don't chase approval. Stay warm, but stay grounded. These principles may sound simple, yet they directly influence how someone feels around you. People are naturally drawn toward emotional stability. It creates comfort. It creates trust. It allows feelings to grow without pressure. When a woman senses that kind of emotional environment, the protective walls in her mind begin to lower. Slowly, naturally, without force. This is why understanding subtle psychology tricks in attraction is not about manipulating someone. It is about recognizing human emotional patterns that already exist. When you understand those patterns, you stop fighting them. You stop misinterpreting them. You stop reacting in ways that push someone away. Instead, you align with the natural rhythm of connection. And the truth is, many of the behaviors men interpret as disinterest are actually signs of deeper evaluation. She wants to see who you are when things are uncertain. She wants to see whether your mood changes depending on her attention. She wants to see whether you remain centered even when she becomes a little distant. That observation process is deeply rooted in female psychology, and it plays a quiet role in almost every romantic dynamic. So the next time you notice a delay in response, a slight emotional distance, or a moment where she seems less expressive than before, pause before drawing conclusions. Ask yourself a different question. Not, is she losing interest, but is she observing how I respond? That small shift in perspective changes everything. Because the man who understands these dynamics behaves very differently from the man who doesn't. He stays relaxed. He stays focused on his own life. He communicates clearly but without urgency. He shows interest but never desperation. And that calm balance sends a powerful message without saying a single word. It says, I know my value. I am not shaken by small fluctuations. That message resonates deeply inside the emotional decision-making process described in female psychology. Over time, when she repeatedly sees that steadiness, something important happens. Curiosity turns into admiration. Admiration turns into emotional openness. And that is when real connection begins to form. That is when conversations become deeper. That is when attention becomes more intentional. That is when the process of how to fall in love truly begins to unfold. Not through pressure, not through chasing, but through emotional trust built step by step. So remember this clearly. When a woman hides her feelings, it does not automatically mean those feelings are absent. Often it means they are becoming significant enough that she wants to protect them until she knows you are emotionally strong enough to handle them. Understand the pattern. Respect the timing. Stay grounded in your own purpose. Because the men who master this quiet awareness are the ones who navigate attraction with calm confidence. And once you truly understand these subtle layers of psychology tricks, the signals that once seemed confusing begin to make perfect sense. 2. The one sign that reveals she's obsessed that everyone gets wrong. Before we go deeper, just do one simple thing. Hit the like button. Because what you're about to hear feels completely backward to most men. 90% of men hear this idea and immediately reject it. They think it makes no sense. But the small group of men who truly understand it begin to see women very differently. They stop guessing. They stop chasing confusion. And suddenly, they begin to attract women without forcing anything. That is the difference between reacting emotionally and thinking clearly like a high-value man. When you learn to read behavior instead of words, relationships become simpler. That is what we're about to talk about. Now listen carefully, because the sign I'm about to explain has probably happened right in front of you many times. Most men see it and instantly assume the worst. They think it means she's losing interest. They think it means she's pulling away. They think it means they did something wrong. But the truth is often the exact opposite. The sign is this: she becomes inconsistent. At first glance, inconsistency feels like rejection. One day she's warm, playful, and engaged. She texts quickly. She laughs easily. She asks questions. It feels natural and exciting. Then suddenly the energy shifts. The next day she seems distant. Her replies take longer. Her messages become short. Maybe just 1 or 2 words. You start wondering what changed. You start analyzing everything you said. Most men panic here. They double text. They chase reassurance. They try to fix something that isn't actually broken. Don't do that. Be calm. Be steady. That is how a high-value man carries himself. Because what's actually happening inside her mind is very different from what it looks like on the surface. When a woman begins to feel genuine emotional attraction, something powerful happens inside her. It doesn't feel simple. It feels intense. Feelings create vulnerability. Vulnerability creates fear. And fear creates hesitation. One part of her wants to move closer to you. She enjoys your presence. She thinks about your conversations. She feels that spark when you appear on her phone screen. But another part of her becomes cautious. She wonders if she's moving too fast. She wonders if she might get hurt. So she pulls back slightly to regain emotional balance. That push and pull creates inconsistency. One day she leans in. The next day she steps back. Then she misses you and leans in again. It's not manipulation. It's emotional self-protection. Think of it like a wave approaching the shore. The water moves forward, then retreats, then returns again with more strength. That rhythm is natural. Human emotions often move the same way. This is where many men misinterpret everything. They believe attraction should look steady and predictable. They assume that if a woman truly likes them, her behavior will be perfectly consistent every single day. But real emotions rarely behave that way. Indifference is consistent. If she truly feels nothing, you will notice a calm, steady distance. She won't fluctuate because there is no emotional investment involved. But when someone is thinking about you often, their behavior sometimes shifts. Their mind is processing. Their emotions are adjusting. That is why inconsistency can actually be a hidden sign she's thinking about you more than she admits. But here is the critical part you must understand. When you notice this behavior, do not react emotionally. Do not chase her energy. Do not try to force clarity. Be patient. Be centered. Let her emotions settle naturally. This calm presence is what women recognize as masculine energy. It signals confidence. It signals emotional stability. And that kind of energy tends to attract women without effort. Remember this simple principle. Attraction grows in space, not pressure. When you remain calm during her emotional fluctuations, you demonstrate something powerful. You show that you are not dependent on her mood. You show that your life remains steady regardless of temporary changes. That is exactly how a high-value man behaves. And ironically, that calmness often makes her feel safer expressing her true feelings later. Now, some of you might still be skeptical. So let's look deeper at how this internal conflict works from her perspective. Imagine a moment when she receives a message from you. For a split second, her mood lifts. She smiles. She feels curious about what you said. But immediately after that excitement comes a quiet voice in her mind. Slow down. Don't show too much. Don't get attached too quickly. So she delays responding. Not because she lost interest. Because she's regulating her emotions. That tiny hesitation creates the appearance of distance. It's a small moment, but it reveals something important. She's thinking about how she feels toward you. Another example happens during conversation. One evening she's open, expressive, laughing freely. She shares stories. She asks deeper questions. She feels comfortable. But the next interaction feels slightly different. She seems quieter, maybe more reserved. That shift doesn't necessarily mean attraction faded. Often it means the previous connection made her aware of how much she enjoyed your presence. That realization can feel intense. So she instinctively slows things down. This emotional rhythm confuses men who expect immediate clarity. But calm observation reveals the truth. A man who understands this doesn't panic when energy shifts. He stays grounded. He continues living his life. He doesn't try to chase validation. That quiet confidence is powerful masculine energy, and it naturally helps attract women who are looking for emotional stability. Now here is something even more interesting. The more a woman tries to hide strong feelings, the more subtle signals appear in her behavior. These signals happen quickly, sometimes within seconds. A glance that lingers slightly longer than expected. A brief pause before replying. A small smile she tries to suppress. These moments are easy to miss, but they reveal what words often conceal. That is why emotional awareness matters more than clever lines or strategies. Don't try to control every interaction. Don't try to decode every message like a puzzle. Instead, observe patterns. Look at the overall rhythm of her behavior. Does she keep returning to the conversation? Does she continue engaging even after moments of distance? Does she remain present in your life in small ways? Those patterns tell you far more than a single text message ever could. And this leads us to an important mindset shift. Stop trying to force attraction. Focus on becoming the kind of man who naturally inspires curiosity and respect. Build your life. Strengthen your character. Carry yourself with quiet confidence. When you develop this steady presence, your masculine energy becomes noticeable without saying a word. Women respond to that stability. It feels safe. It feels intriguing. It feels different from the emotional chaos they often encounter. So when you see inconsistency, don't immediately assume rejection. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself a better question. Is she disappearing completely, or is she moving closer and then stepping back? Because that difference reveals everything. A woman who truly feels nothing will gradually fade away with steady distance. But a woman who feels something real often moves in cycles. Closer, then cautious, then closer again. And understanding that simple pattern is something most men never learn. But once you recognize it, your entire perspective on attraction changes. If this message opened your eyes even a little, don't just watch and move on. Most men panic when a woman becomes inconsistent. They chase, they overthink, they lose control. But the man who understands what's really happening stays calm, steady, and confident. That is the difference between confusion and quiet power. So if you're the kind of man who refuses to misread the signs, the man who stays composed while everyone else reacts emotionally, then prove it. Drop this comment right now: I stay calm while others panic. Write it in the comments to remind yourself that understanding people is strength, not luck. And if you want more insights like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel and stay with me, because the next signs I'm about to reveal will change the way you read attraction forever. 3. The 5 hidden signs she's missing you that she thinks you'll never notice. Listen carefully, because what you are about to understand will save you years of confusion and second-guessing in modern relationships. Many men believe that if a woman truly misses them, she will say it openly, call first, or show obvious affection. That belief sounds logical, but reality is different. Human emotion is rarely displayed in a straight line. Especially today, in a world shaped by social media, pride, and emotional caution, feelings often move in quiet circles rather than bold declarations. The ancient philosophers understood this long ago. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, look within. Within is the fountain of good. And when you begin to look beneath the surface of behavior instead of reacting to appearances, you begin to see patterns others miss. This is the foundation of old Stoic wisdom. It trains you to observe calmly, interpret wisely, and act with an iron mind. And when a man develops that level of awareness, relationships stop being confusing. They become readable, predictable, understandable. That is the philosophy behind Stoicism win. You stop chasing signals. You start recognizing them. So let us break down the 5 hidden signs that reveal she misses you deeply, even while pretending nothing is happening. The first sign appears in the quietest place of modern connection, the digital world. She watches your social media but never reacts. No likes, no comments, no visible interaction. Yet every story you post shows the same pattern. Her name appears in the viewer list again and again. Some men ignore this. Others assume it means nothing. But observation teaches a different lesson. People invest attention where their emotions are. Attention is the most honest currency of the modern age. Anyone can press a like button. That takes 1 second and 0 vulnerability. But silent observation is different. It means she is curious but careful, present but hidden. She wants to know what you are doing, where you are going, and who you are becoming. She is building a quiet picture of your life from a distance. Think about that for a moment. If she truly did not care, she would not spend the time. She would scroll past you like every other account in the endless feed. Instead, she watches. Again and again. This is what an experienced mind recognizes as emotional proximity without exposure. Her mind says, stay safe. Her curiosity says, stay close. And that internal tension produces the behavior you see. The Stoics understood this principle centuries ago. Epictetus taught, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In relationships, the man who wins is the one who observes twice as much as he reacts. That is the iron mind in action. He notices patterns others ignore. He sees the quiet signals. He does not chase validation. He studies behavior. That is how Stoicism win turns emotional confusion into calm understanding. Now the second sign reveals itself through seemingly meaningless messages. She contacts you, but never directly about feelings. Instead, it arrives disguised as something small. A meme late at night. A random question about something that happened weeks ago. A video that just reminded her of you. At first glance, these messages appear casual, even accidental. But a man guided by old Stoic wisdom knows better than to take surface explanations at face value. Communication always has a purpose. And when someone reaches out repeatedly, the purpose is connection. The content is simply the excuse. Think about the timing of these messages. Late evenings, quiet weekends, moments when the world slows down and people are left alone with their thoughts. Those are the hours when emotions grow louder, when memories replay, when curiosity returns, and suddenly a meme becomes the doorway to a conversation she actually wanted all along. She did not message because of the meme. She messaged because she wanted to speak with you. But pride, caution, or uncertainty encouraged her to wrap that intention inside something harmless. The famous writer Mark Twain once said, "The secret of getting ahead is getting started." In emotional communication, sometimes people simply need a safe way to start. That small message is her version of opening the door. She knocks gently instead of announcing herself loudly. And this is where the Stoic mindset becomes powerful. Instead of overanalyzing or reacting emotionally, you remain calm. You recognize the pattern. You respond with clarity, not desperation, not pressure, just calm presence. That is the discipline of the iron mind, and it is the path where Stoicism transforms confusion into quiet control. The third sign often appears outside your direct interaction. She brings you up in conversations with mutual friends, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that screams attention. Instead, it happens casually. Your name appears in a story, a question about how you are doing, a comment about something you once said. At first glance, this seems small, but psychologically, it reveals something deeper. When someone misses you, your presence continues to exist in their mental world. Your memory becomes part of their daily thinking. And when conversations flow naturally, your name slips into those conversations without effort. Why does this happen? Because speaking about you recreates a sense of connection. It allows her to experience your presence without exposing her feelings directly to you. Think of it as emotional proximity through conversation. She keeps you alive in her world by mentioning you. Modern life has only amplified this behavior. In a culture where people carefully manage how they appear emotionally, indirect expression becomes common. Yet the pattern still reveals the truth. When your name appears repeatedly in her conversations, it means you occupy space in her mind. Seneca once wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." But kindness begins with attention. People talk about what they care about. They remember what matters. They mention the people who live in their thoughts. And the Stoic man does not become arrogant when he recognizes this. He simply acknowledges it calmly. Awareness without ego. That is old Stoic wisdom. It keeps your mind steady, your actions thoughtful, and your reactions disciplined. That is the iron mind that leads to Stoicism in relationships and life. Now we arrive at the fourth sign, and this one happens in real time when you are together. Words can be controlled. Body language often cannot. The body reveals emotional truth before the mind has time to filter it. Watch carefully. When you speak in a group, she turns fully toward you. Her attention locks in. She mirrors your posture without realizing it. If you lean back, she leans back. If you gesture with your hands, she begins to do the same. These are classic mirroring behaviors, and they happen automatically when someone feels emotionally aligned with another person. Her pupils may widen slightly when she looks at you. Her hands might move through her hair, her jewelry, or her phone. These gestures are not rehearsed signals. They are subconscious expressions of emotional awareness. Her logical mind might be telling her to stay composed. But the emotional center of the brain, the part responsible for attraction and connection, reveals the truth through movement. The philosopher Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But in relationships, knowing human nature is just as powerful. When you understand that the body often speaks louder than the mouth, you begin to read interactions with clarity. The Stoic approach does not rush to conclusions, but it does recognize patterns. You watch calmly. You observe respectfully. You allow actions to reveal truth over time. This calm observation strengthens the iron mind and reinforces the philosophy of Stoicism where wisdom replaces emotional chaos. The fifth and final sign requires the sharpest level of awareness because it lives in memory. She remembers everything about you. Small details you barely remember sharing. A story you mentioned once. A food you said you liked. A random idea you expressed weeks earlier. Then suddenly, during a conversation, she brings it up naturally. That moment surprises many men. They wonder how she could possibly remember something so small. But the explanation is simple. When someone misses you, their mind revisits the moments they shared with you. They replay conversations. They revisit memories. They reflect on interactions long after they happened. And during those reflections, details become anchors in the mind. The brain naturally stores information connected to emotional significance. That is why you might forget 10 conversations in a day, yet remember one meaningful moment from years ago. When she repeats something you said weeks earlier, she is revealing that those moments stayed with her. They were replayed, revisited, reconsidered. The famous writer Maya Angelou expressed this truth perfectly. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. When someone misses you deeply, they return to the memories that created that feeling. And those memories live quietly in the background of their mind. A man guided by old Stoic wisdom understands this without becoming consumed by it. He does not chase confirmation. He does not force outcomes. He simply recognizes that attention, memory, and repeated curiosity are powerful indicators of emotional presence. He keeps his composure. He moves through life with purpose. He maintains the clarity of an iron mind. Because in the philosophy of Stoicism, mastery is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. So here is the deeper lesson behind all 5 signs. When someone misses you, the evidence rarely appears as dramatic declarations. It appears as patterns: quiet observation, small messages, casual mentions, subtle body language, unforgettable details. These signals require patience to see, awareness to understand, discipline to interpret correctly. That is why the Stoic approach is so powerful in modern relationships. While many people react emotionally, the Stoic man studies behavior calmly. He does not panic when communication slows. He does not assume the worst when emotions are hidden. Instead, he trusts observation. He trusts time. He trusts patterns. Because when you cultivate the perspective of old Stoic wisdom, you stop chasing answers. You start recognizing them. And when you develop the steadiness of an iron mind, relationships no longer control your emotions. Your clarity controls your response. That is the true victory. That is the quiet power behind Stoicism. Not manipulation, not pressure, just calm awareness, disciplined thinking, and the confidence that comes from understanding human nature. 4. The move that forces her to reveal everything. The move that forces her to reveal everything is not loud, dramatic, or desperate. It is quiet, controlled, and deeply rooted in understanding female psychology, something most men never truly study. Many men believe attraction is built by pushing harder, talking more, and showing constant interest. But that assumption ignores the subtle psychology tricks that shape how emotions actually grow. When you finally begin to recognize the signs that she misses you, when she becomes inconsistent, when she suddenly reaches out after silence, when her attention subtly increases, most men make the same mistake. They rush forward. They text more often. They try to define the relationship. They want clarity immediately. Don't do that. That reaction comes from anxiety, not strength. And the moment she feels that pressure, something changes. The curiosity fades. The tension disappears, the emotional mystery that fuels attraction collapses. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages." And what he hinted at is deeper than romance. It is the human need to feel freedom inside connection. When you rush, you remove that freedom. You remove the space where emotions grow. That is why the move that forces her to reveal everything feels completely counterintuitive. Instead of leaning in, you step back slightly at the exact moment her interest begins to rise. Not dramatically, not in a childish or manipulative way. Be calm, be measured, be intentional. That is the move. Most men cannot do it because their instinct screams the opposite. Their instinct says, act now, lock this down, confirm the feelings. But instinct is not wisdom. Wisdom understands timing. Wisdom understands female psychology. And when you truly grasp these psychology tricks, you realize something powerful. Attraction thrives inside uncertainty. Think about the early stages of how to fall in love. It rarely happens when everything is predictable. It happens when someone occupies your thoughts unexpectedly, when you wonder what they are doing, when their presence feels meaningful but not guaranteed. That uncertainty creates emotional tension, and tension is the hidden engine behind connection. When she starts missing you, her mind begins asking questions. Is he thinking about me too? Is he different from the other men? Is he emotionally strong? Does he need my attention, or does he choose me freely? These questions are the early steps in how to fall in love, whether she realizes it or not. But when you chase for answers, you destroy those questions before they have time to grow. Instead, you must understand the quiet discipline behind this strategy. Notice her interest, then pull back just enough to let her mind work. That does not mean disappearing for weeks or playing childish games. Don't be immature. Don't be cold. Be composed. Respond a little slower. End conversations first sometimes. Stay focused on your own life. Let your actions communicate that your world does not revolve around chasing validation. This is where many of the most effective psychology tricks operate, not through manipulation, but through emotional balance. Your life remains full. Your purpose remains clear. Your energy remains steady. She sees that. She feels it. And suddenly something happens inside her mind that most men never anticipate. Her curiosity turns inward. She begins to analyze the situation. She begins to wonder if she misread the connection. She begins to feel the subtle fear of losing something that had potential. And here is where female psychology becomes incredibly fascinating. Human beings value what feels meaningful but not guaranteed. The moment certainty appears too quickly, the emotional investment decreases. But when possibility remains open, the mind becomes engaged. Questions begin to form. Did I wait too long to show interest? Is he seeing someone else? Was he more interested before and now he's moving on? These thoughts create emotional urgency. And emotional urgency is powerful. It shifts the dynamic. Instead of you trying to uncover her feelings, she begins trying to uncover yours. Instead of you seeking reassurance, she begins seeking clarity. This is not manipulation. It is simply understanding how attraction unfolds naturally. The author Esther Perel, who has spent decades studying relationships, once said, "Desire needs space." That single sentence captures the heart of this strategy. Desire cannot breathe inside pressure. Desire grows in the space between two people. When you allow that space to exist, her emotions have room to move, to question, to deepen. And that is where the shift happens. Her brain begins searching for resolution. Humans are wired to resolve emotional uncertainty. When something meaningful feels unresolved, the mind returns to it repeatedly. This is one of the most powerful psychology tricks behind attraction and connection. She begins replaying your conversations. She remembers the moments of laughter. She notices your absence more than she expected. And slowly, the protective walls she once maintained begin to soften. This is also why understanding how to fall in love is less about forcing feelings and more about allowing them to emerge naturally. Love grows in curiosity. Love grows in emotional safety mixed with a touch of mystery. And when you create that balance, something remarkable happens. The person who once held back begins stepping forward. The person who once hid emotions begins revealing them. That is the moment many men describe as she suddenly opened up. But it was never sudden. It was psychological momentum building quietly over time. And when it reaches the tipping point, the mask drops. She reaches out. She initiates conversations. She asks where things stand. She shows vulnerability in ways she previously avoided. Not because she was forced, but because her need for clarity became stronger than her need for emotional protection. This is why patience becomes one of the most attractive qualities a man can have. Patience communicates confidence. Patience communicates self-trust. A man who trusts his value does not chase emotional confirmation every day. He allows the connection to reveal itself. And ironically, that calm discipline often accelerates attraction far more than constant pursuit ever could. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That wisdom applies perfectly here. You cannot control someone's feelings. You cannot force someone to admit attraction. But you can control your presence, your energy, your composure. When you master that inner stability, your behavior naturally aligns with the deeper patterns of female psychology. And that is where real influence begins. The move that forces her to reveal everything is not a trick in the manipulative sense. It is the disciplined refusal to rush what should unfold naturally. It is the understanding that attraction is a dance, not a chase. It is the patience to let emotional tension develop without interrupting it prematurely. When you understand these psychology tricks, when you truly grasp the deeper rhythms of female psychology, you stop obsessing over small signals. You stop trying to decode every text message. You stop asking friends what she meant by a certain look or phrase. Instead, you create the environment where her actions will speak clearly. Because when curiosity builds long enough, when emotional tension reaches its natural peak, people reveal their true feelings without being asked. That is how genuine connection emerges. That is how emotional honesty appears. And that is often the moment when the process of how to fall in love truly begins, not through pressure, not through endless analysis, but through two people gradually stepping toward each other once uncertainty has transformed into desire. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with something simple but powerful. Listen carefully. A man never wins by chasing signals. He wins by building a life that doesn't depend on them. If a woman hides her feelings, don't panic. Don't overthink every message. Don't sit there wondering what every silence means. Be calm. Be steady. Focus on becoming the kind of man whose happiness doesn't rise and fall based on someone else's attention. That is the real power. When your life has purpose, when your mind is clear, when your confidence comes from knowing your own value, people feel it immediately. And that's when something interesting happens. You stop trying to be missed, and suddenly you become unforgettable. So here's my sincere advice to you. Build your life first. Grow your confidence. Protect your peace. Let attraction come naturally instead of forcing it. When you become a man who respects himself, the right people will feel that energy without you saying a word. All right, my friend, that's all for today. I'm really glad you spent these few minutes with me. If this message helped you see things differently, let me know in the comments by writing "Thank you." It helps the channel and it tells me you're serious about learning and improving. And if you want more honest insights about attraction and human psychology, make sure you subscribe and stay with us. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. 3 signs a woman secretly wants intimacy with you. There is something interesting about human beings that very few people notice. We often assume that big emotions must appear through big signs, clear confessions, dramatic gestures, powerful actions, moments that look like scenes from a movie. But real life rarely unfolds that way. Most genuine feelings actually begin with very small things. So small that if you are not paying attention, you will easily miss them. Sometimes it is just an eye contact that lingers a little longer than usual while two people are talking. Not a staring gaze, but a softer look, as if the person is listening to you not only with their ears, but also with their emotions. Sometimes it is when someone is laughing and casually touches your arm for a brief moment. They may not think much about that action, but the human body is often far more honest than words. When we feel comfortable and close to someone, the natural distance between two people slowly begins to disappear. Other times, it appears in very ordinary situations. Two people are standing in a large group of friends. The room is full of noise and conversations. Yet somehow, in the middle of all that noise, those two people end up having their own quiet conversation. Not because they intentionally separated from the group, but because their attention naturally moves toward each other. Psychology calls these microsignals of connection, small behaviors we often show when we feel comfortable, curious, or when we are beginning to feel something for someone. But there is an interesting paradox. People are often taught how to talk, how to impress others, how to make people like them. Yet, very few people are ever taught how to observe. In relationships, the ability to observe can sometimes be even more important than saying something impressive. When you start paying attention to these small details, you may notice something surprising. Many moments of connection between people have already appeared long before we realize them. We simply miss them because we are too busy thinking about what we should say next. What makes someone attractive in the eyes of others is not always excessive confidence or clever words. Sometimes it is simply presence, the ability to be in the moment naturally, without forcing it, without trying to become a different version of yourself. In relationship psychology, researchers have found that attraction rarely begins with grand gestures. It often begins with a sense of safety. When someone feels that they can truly be themselves around you, everything else tends to grow naturally from there. So instead of trying to find tricks or strategies to understand others, sometimes the simplest thing is the most effective. Slow down a little. Observe a little more. Listen a little more. You may be surprised to realize that in many ordinary moments of life, people are constantly sending each other very subtle signals, signals of interest, curiosity, and sometimes even a quiet spark of attraction. And if you pay close enough attention to notice those small signals, you will understand that human connection is not really something complicated. Sometimes it simply begins with a glance, a smile, or a conversation that lasts a few minutes longer than either person wants it to end. 1. She starts touching you in a natural way. There is a moment many men pass by without even noticing it, a moment so ordinary that it almost hides in plain sight. Yet in the quiet language of human connection, it can say far more than any bold declaration ever could. It begins simply. No dramatic gesture, no grand announcement, just a small shift in how she interacts with you. That is the first sign a woman may secretly desire a deeper closeness with you. She begins to touch you in natural, effortless ways. Not loudly, not deliberately staged, just small, everyday moments that feel almost accidental. You're both laughing about something trivial, maybe a joke that wasn't even that funny, and as she laughs, she lightly taps your arm. Not hard, just a brief, soft contact. A moment later, you're walking through a crowded room or down a busy sidewalk, and she places her hand gently on your shoulder or your back as she moves past. Or perhaps during a conversation, her fingers rest on your hand for a second longer than necessary before she pulls away. These moments are easy to dismiss. Many men do. They shrug and think, she's just being friendly. But slow down. Look again. The body often speaks before the mind decides what to say, and this is where understanding female psychology becomes important. When someone feels comfortable with another person, when they feel safe in their presence, the natural barrier of personal space begins to soften. That invisible bubble we all carry around us grows smaller. The distance shrinks without effort. This is not manipulation. This is not some elaborate performance. It's simply how human connection tends to unfold when two people begin to feel drawn toward each other. Researchers who study female psychology often point out that physical touch is one of the earliest signals of growing comfort and emotional openness. The brain releases small waves of chemicals connected to trust and bonding, and the body responds by allowing more closeness. A touch on the arm, a brush against the shoulder, a hand resting briefly where it didn't need to be. None of these actions are loud signals. They are whispers. And here is where many men miss the moment entirely. They are busy analyzing what to say next. They are replaying their own thoughts, wondering if they sound interesting or confident enough. In doing so, they overlook what is happening right in front of them. That is why understanding these quiet cues matters. Not because you need clever lines or fancy psychology tricks to respond, but because awareness itself changes how you experience the interaction. When a woman feels at ease around you, when she begins to feel curiosity or attraction, her body language often relaxes in subtle ways. She may adjust your collar jokingly. She may nudge your arm while emphasizing a point in conversation. She may guide you lightly through a doorway or a crowd. Again, these are not big moves. Do not overinterpret a single gesture. One touch alone means very little, but patterns tell a different story. When these touches appear repeatedly during an interaction, when the contact lingers just slightly longer than normal social politeness requires, something deeper may be unfolding beneath the surface. This is one of the quiet psychology tricks of human connection that most people never consciously learn, yet they experience it their entire lives. Think back to your own past. You may remember a moment years later when you suddenly realized that someone had been showing interest in you all along. At the time, it seemed ordinary. Later, it became obvious. That realization often comes from noticing those small physical cues you didn't understand at the time. And here is the important thing: do not treat this like a mechanical formula. Human relationships are not machines. These signals are not guarantees. They are simply invitations to pay attention. The real insight from female psychology is not about chasing signs or trying to decode every movement like a detective. The real lesson is to observe calmly and stay present. When she touches your arm while laughing, don't freeze and start analyzing it like a complicated puzzle. Just smile. Stay relaxed. Continue the conversation naturally. When she guides you lightly through a crowd, don't turn it into a dramatic moment in your mind. Just notice the comfort in the interaction. That is the point. Comfort. Human attraction often begins not with intensity, but with ease. Two people feel relaxed together. The conversation flows without effort. Small touches happen without anyone planning them. The room feels a little quieter even when it's full of people. This is the subtle rhythm where many connections begin. And the men who understand this are rarely the ones performing tricks or trying to impress everyone in the room. They are the ones who notice the small signals. They are the ones who slow down enough to observe what is actually happening instead of rushing to control the moment. So pay attention to these details. Notice when she touches your arm more than once during a conversation. Notice when her hand lingers briefly instead of pulling away instantly. Notice when physical distance between you seems to shrink naturally over time. These are not dramatic fireworks, but they are meaningful. In the quiet science of female psychology, small gestures often reveal far more than loud words. And when you learn to recognize these signals without forcing anything, you begin to see something fascinating about human relationships. Attraction rarely begins with a grand moment. More often, it begins with a simple touch that lasts 1 second longer than expected, a moment so ordinary that most people miss it entirely. 2. The quality of her gaze changes. The second sign often appears in a place most men underestimate, yet it may be one of the clearest signals of growing connection. The quality of her gaze changes. Eye contact is not just a social habit. It is one of the oldest ways human beings communicate emotion without saying a word. Long before anyone speaks about attraction, interest, or connection, the eyes begin telling the story quietly. When a woman begins to feel drawn to you, the way she looks at you shifts in subtle but meaningful ways. It does not look dramatic. It rarely looks obvious. In fact, it often looks so natural that most men dismiss it entirely. But that is the mistake. Do not overlook the small details. Pay attention. Notice the rhythm of her gaze when you are speaking. She holds eye contact a little longer than usual, not in a sharp or intense way, not like someone studying you under a microscope. Instead, it feels softer, warmer, more focused. She is present. She is listening. And for that moment, you have her full attention. Then something interesting happens. After holding your gaze for a few seconds, she glances down briefly. Just a small movement. A pause. And then she looks back up again. That pattern may repeat several times during a conversation. Look, hold, soften, glance down, return. It may seem like a simple interaction, but in the quiet language of human connection, it often signals something deeper. This rhythm of eye contact is common when attraction begins to grow between two people. Think of it as a silent conversation happening alongside the spoken one. Words carry the story, but the eyes carry the emotion behind it. Her gaze is saying, without speaking, I'm paying attention to you in a way that feels different. Many men miss this because they are busy performing. They are thinking about the next clever sentence. They are worrying about how they appear. They are trying to impress. Don't do that. Be calm. Be observant. That is far more powerful. A man who understands how to fall in love and how attraction grows knows that connection is rarely created by forcing anything. It is recognized in the subtle signals that appear naturally between two people. Eye contact is one of the clearest of those signals. Imagine standing in a crowded room, music playing, conversations happening everywhere, people laughing, moving, talking over each other. Yet, in the middle of all that noise, something strange happens. You look across the room and your eyes meet hers. For a brief moment, the chaos around you fades. She holds the look just long enough for you to notice. Then she glances down slightly, perhaps with a small smile, before looking back again. Suddenly it feels as if the conversation in the room has narrowed to just two people, you and her. If you have ever experienced that moment, you already understand the quiet power of eye communication. It is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is subtle, but it is real. In the psychology of attraction, this pattern appears frequently because attention is the foundation of interest. When someone feels curious about you, their mind naturally returns to you again and again. Their eyes follow that curiosity. They seek you out in the room. They linger on your face a moment longer than politeness requires. That is the signal. That is the shift. But here is where wisdom matters. Do not treat this as a rigid formula. Not every glance means the same thing. One look alone proves nothing. Context matters. Patterns matter. Consistency matters. A single moment can be coincidence. Repeated moments form a message. When you notice her returning eye contact several times during a conversation, when her gaze softens when you speak, when she glances down briefly before reconnecting with you again, something meaningful may be unfolding. That is why awareness matters more than cleverness. Many men spend years searching for tricks. They look for secret lines or strategies. They study endless advice about dating techniques. Yet the real understanding of how to fall in love rarely comes from tricks at all. It comes from observation, from emotional awareness, from recognizing the quiet signals that already exist between two people. A high-value man understands this instinctively. He does not chase attention desperately. He notices when attention naturally appears. He remains steady in the moment. He does not panic when a woman holds his gaze. He does not look away nervously. Instead, he simply returns the eye contact calmly. He smiles slightly. He continues the conversation. That is confidence in its simplest form. And confidence does not mean intensity. It means comfort with the moment as it is. The fascinating thing about eye contact is that it often reveals emotional states that words try to hide. People can control what they say, but controlling the eyes is much harder. When someone feels drawn toward you, their eyes naturally soften. Their focus sharpens. Their attention lingers. And when they glance down briefly before returning their gaze, it often reflects a mixture of curiosity, warmth, and emotional openness. Again, do not overthink it. Do not treat every glance like a puzzle to solve. Stay relaxed. That is important. Attraction grows best in an environment of ease. When two people feel comfortable, their communication becomes effortless. The eyes meet naturally. The conversation flows naturally. No one is forcing the moment forward. That is why the men who understand how to fall in love are often the ones who slow down enough to observe what is already happening instead of trying to manufacture something new. Be present in the conversation. Notice when her attention returns to you again and again. Notice the warmth in her gaze when she listens. Notice when the rest of the room fades away for a moment while the two of you are speaking. These are small things, but small things often reveal the beginning of something meaningful. A high-value man recognizes that attraction does not begin with dramatic gestures or rehearsed lines. It begins with attention, with curiosity, with two people sharing a moment of focus that feels slightly different from every other interaction in the room. So remember this clearly. Do not chase signals. Do not interrogate every detail. Simply observe the quality of the interaction. When her gaze lingers, when her eyes soften, when the rhythm of look, glance, and return begins to repeat. That is not random. That is the quiet language of interest revealing itself. And if you are attentive enough to notice it, you will understand something important about human connection. Attraction rarely begins with fireworks. More often, it begins with a simple moment of eye contact that lasts just a little longer than expected, a moment where two people silently acknowledge each other before a single word about feelings has ever been spoken. 3. She creates small private moments between the two of you. The third sign often appears so quietly that most men miss it completely, yet it may be the most powerful signal of all. She begins creating small private moments between the two of you. Understand this clearly. Social environments are built around groups. People talk in circles. Conversations jump from one voice to another. Attention spreads across the room. That is the natural structure of modern life: offices, dinner parties, coffee shops, networking events, family gatherings. But when a woman begins to feel a deeper connection with a man, the pattern changes. She begins gently shifting the environment. She creates small pockets of privacy inside a crowded space. She might lean toward you and say, "Come here, I want to show you something." She might suggest grabbing a drink together even though there are plenty of other people around. She might lower her voice slightly and say something meant only for you to hear. These are not random gestures. These are subtle invitations. Pay attention to them, because when someone chooses to create a private moment with you in a busy environment, they are revealing where their attention truly lives. As the philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote, "The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of." Human connection rarely announces itself loudly. It moves quietly. It moves intentionally. And it often begins with the simple act of creating a space where two people can focus on each other without the noise of the crowd. In today's world, this matters more than ever. People live in constant distraction. Phones buzzing, notifications flashing, conversations competing with music and screens. In that environment, attention becomes valuable. When a woman steps slightly away from the group and invites you into a smaller moment of conversation, she is doing something meaningful. She is giving you her attention. That is the beginning of real connection. Now listen carefully. Many men fail here because they overthink the moment. They hesitate. They wonder what it means. They hesitate again. Do not do that. Stay calm. Stay present. That is how you attract women naturally. When she creates that small pocket of privacy, step into it confidently. Do not rush. Do not panic. Simply continue the conversation with steady presence. Confidence is quiet. Confidence is relaxed. Confidence is the natural expression of masculine energy that does not need to prove itself to anyone in the room. This is why experienced men understand something younger men often miss. Attraction does not grow in chaos. It grows in focused attention. When two people step slightly away from the crowd, even for a few minutes, the energy changes. The conversation deepens. Eye contact lasts longer. Laughter feels more personal. That shift is powerful. Napoleon Hill once said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." The same principle applies to human relationships. If you carry yourself with clear masculine energy, calm presence, and genuine curiosity, people feel it immediately. Women especially notice it. They respond to it. They feel safe around it. And safety is the foundation of attraction. Do not misunderstand this. You are not chasing attention. You are recognizing it when it appears. A man who understands how to attract women does not beg for attention. He notices when attention naturally flows toward him. When she invites you to step aside and look at something together. When she suggests grabbing a drink. When she lowers her voice so that only you can hear her words. These are small but powerful shifts in social space. These moments allow curiosity to grow. They allow the conversation to breathe. And in those moments, your job is simple. Be present. Be attentive. Listen. Respond naturally. That is the behavior of a man grounded in masculine energy. And masculine energy is not about force or intensity. It is about calm certainty. It is about knowing you belong in the moment without needing to dominate the room. As the psychologist Carl Jung once observed, where love rules, there is no will to power. Attraction grows best when the interaction feels natural, not forced. When she creates a private moment, she is testing the atmosphere of connection. She is observing how you respond when the spotlight narrows. Do you become nervous and start performing? Or do you remain relaxed, engaged, and comfortable with the moment? Choose the second path. That is how you attract women consistently. Because the truth is simple, people are drawn to emotional stability. They feel comfortable around someone who does not panic under attention. They feel intrigued by someone who listens more than he talks. They respect someone whose masculine energy remains steady even in unfamiliar situations. Modern life is full of distractions and superficial interactions. Most conversations remain shallow. Quick greetings, polite laughter, short exchanges that end as quickly as they begin. But when someone intentionally creates a small private moment with you, the interaction has the opportunity to move beyond that surface level. The conversation becomes personal. You begin sharing thoughts instead of small talk. And that is where genuine connection begins to grow. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm." Bring that quiet enthusiasm into your interactions. Be curious about the person in front of you. Ask thoughtful questions. Listen to her responses carefully. Let the conversation unfold naturally. Do not rush to impress. The strongest masculine energy is calm curiosity combined with attentive presence. When you master this approach, you will notice something interesting. These private moments begin appearing more often because women respond to the atmosphere you create. When they feel relaxed around you, they naturally look for opportunities to continue the interaction. They create reasons to extend the conversation. They suggest stepping aside from the group. They lower their voice slightly and speak directly to you. That is not coincidence. That is connection taking shape. Remember this principle. Attraction does not appear as a loud announcement. It grows through small, consistent signals. A glance, a smile, a shared laugh, and eventually, a moment where the two of you step slightly away from the crowd and focus only on each other. When that moment appears, treat it with respect. Be attentive. Be present. Do not overanalyze. Simply engage with calm confidence. That is how you attract women naturally. That is how masculine energy expresses itself in everyday life. Not through force, not through performance, but through steady presence, clear attention, and the ability to recognize meaningful moments when they appear. Master this awareness, and you will begin to see something powerful. Connection is happening around you far more often than you once believed. The signals are there. The invitations are there. Most men miss them because they are distracted or uncertain. You will not be that man. You will see the moment. You will step into it calmly. And you will allow the conversation to unfold exactly as it should. When we step back and look at the idea of a woman creating small private moments with you, we begin to understand that attraction between adults is rarely loud, theatrical, or dramatic. In movies, romance explodes into existence with a kiss in the rain or a sudden confession in front of a crowd. Real life almost never works that way. In real life, attraction moves quietly. It grows through subtle decisions people make in ordinary moments. A woman stepping slightly away from a group to talk to you. A quiet invitation to grab a drink. A soft comment spoken only for you to hear. These are the kinds of moments that reveal genuine interest, and understanding them can change how a man experiences social interactions for the rest of his life. Many men pass through these moments without recognizing them. They walk away from a gathering thinking nothing unusual happened. Then weeks or even years later, they suddenly realize that someone might have been giving them a chance to connect. This happens far more often than people admit. The reason is simple. Most men are trained to watch for obvious signals. They expect clear statements. They expect unmistakable invitations. But human attraction rarely announces itself that way. It tends to appear in small shifts of attention and space. When a woman creates a private moment with you in a social setting, she is doing something meaningful. She is narrowing her focus. Instead of spreading her attention across the entire group, she directs it toward you. In psychology, attention is one of the strongest indicators of interest. People naturally spend their attention where their curiosity lives. They lean toward the conversations that intrigue them. They move closer to the individuals who make them feel comfortable and understood. This is why this small invitation matters. It might look simple on the surface. She asks you to look at something across the room. She suggests stepping outside for a moment. She offers to show you something on her phone. The action itself may appear casual, but the underlying message is powerful. She is choosing to interact with you more personally than with everyone else around her. Think about how modern social environments work. Whether you are at a dinner party, a work event, a friend's gathering, or even a casual coffee shop, conversations usually happen in groups. Several people speak at once. Stories bounce from one person to another. Laughter spreads across the table. In those environments, it is easy for attention to scatter. But when someone deliberately creates a small pocket of privacy, something changes. The atmosphere becomes more focused. The conversation becomes more personal. The two people involved have the opportunity to connect without the constant interruption of the group dynamic. For a man in his 30s, 40s, 50s, or beyond, understanding this shift is incredibly valuable. At this stage of life, relationships are often more nuanced than they were in youth. People are more careful with their emotions. They tend to communicate interest through subtle behavior rather than bold declarations. That is why the ability to recognize these moments becomes a powerful social skill. There is also another reason these moments matter. Privacy allows authenticity to emerge. When people speak within a group, they often present a version of themselves designed to fit the social environment. They tell stories that entertain the room. They make comments that keep the energy light. But when two people step slightly away from the group, the tone of the conversation often changes. People begin sharing more thoughtful ideas. They speak more honestly. They reveal small pieces of their personal world. This is the space where connection grows. Understanding this dynamic does not require manipulation or complicated strategies. It requires awareness. When a woman creates a private moment with you, the most important thing you can do is respond with calm presence. Many men make the mistake of becoming overly analytical. They start wondering what the invitation means. They begin rehearsing clever lines in their head. They worry about saying the wrong thing. All of that mental noise disrupts the natural flow of the interaction. Instead, the best response is simple. Stay relaxed. Stay curious. Continue the conversation as you normally would. Listen carefully to what she says. Respond thoughtfully. Allow the moment to unfold naturally. Confidence at this stage of life is rarely about being the loudest person in the room. True confidence is quieter than that. It is the ability to remain steady in social situations. It is the ability to enjoy a conversation without constantly measuring its outcome. When you bring that energy into an interaction, people feel it immediately. Women especially tend to notice emotional stability. A man who remains calm and attentive during conversation creates a sense of comfort around him. Comfort, in turn, makes deeper conversation possible. Another interesting aspect of these private moments is that they often appear gradually. A woman may first speak with you casually within a group. Later, she may direct a comment specifically toward you. After a few exchanges, she might suggest stepping aside for a moment or inviting you to continue the conversation elsewhere. Each step narrows the focus slightly more. This gradual progression is natural. It allows both people to gauge the atmosphere between them. It allows them to decide whether they enjoy the interaction enough to continue exploring it. Men who recognize this pattern tend to experience social situations very differently from those who do not. Instead of waiting for unmistakable signals, they notice the subtle transitions that happen before attraction becomes obvious. For example, imagine you are at a gathering with friends. Several conversations are happening at once. A woman you recently met begins asking you questions about your work or hobbies. The conversation flows easily. A few minutes later, she says something like, "Come here, I want to show you something," and gestures toward another part of the room. At that moment, the environment shifts. The group conversation fades behind you. Now it is just the two of you speaking. Perhaps the topic becomes more personal. Perhaps the laughter becomes more relaxed. These are the moments where emotional connection begins forming. What matters most in these situations is your ability to remain attentive without rushing the interaction. Some men feel pressured to escalate the conversation quickly. They worry that if they do not act immediately, the moment will disappear. In reality, genuine connection grows best when both people feel comfortable taking their time. Think of these moments as invitations to explore a conversation rather than opportunities to prove something. Another important aspect of modern life is that many social interactions now occur through digital platforms. People communicate through messages, social media, and online communities. While these tools are useful, they often remove the subtle cues that exist in face-to-face interaction. In person, we observe body language, tone of voice, and shifts in physical space. These elements create layers of communication that cannot easily be replicated online. When a woman steps slightly closer to speak with you privately in a crowded environment, that physical shift carries emotional meaning. It signals that she values the interaction enough to step outside the group dynamic. In digital communication, those signals are harder to read. That is why in-person awareness remains such a valuable skill. Men who develop this awareness often find that their social confidence grows naturally. They stop feeling like they must force interactions to happen. Instead, they begin recognizing opportunities as they appear. There is also a deeper life lesson hidden inside this idea. Human connection thrives on attention. In a world filled with constant distractions, attention has become one of the rarest resources people can offer each other. Phones buzz. Notifications flash. Conversations compete with screens. When someone chooses to focus their attention on you, even briefly, it becomes meaningful. This is especially true when that focus happens in a crowded environment. By creating a small private moment with you, a woman is essentially saying, "For the next few minutes, I want to know more about you." That invitation deserves respect. Not pressure, not performance, just respect. Responding well to that invitation often leads to better conversations, stronger friendships, and sometimes romantic relationships that grow naturally over time. Another point worth mentioning is that not every private moment leads to romance. Sometimes people simply enjoy talking to someone who makes them feel comfortable. The goal is not to assume intention. The goal is to remain open to the possibility of connection. When you approach social interactions with that mindset, the pressure disappears. You no longer feel responsible for creating attraction out of thin air. Instead, you recognize when attraction might already be present. That shift in perspective is powerful. It changes how you move through social environments. You become more attentive, more relaxed, more capable of enjoying conversations for what they are. Over time, this awareness builds a quiet confidence. You begin noticing patterns in human behavior. You see how attention flows within a room. You recognize when conversations deepen or fade. These observations make social situations far less mysterious. And perhaps most importantly, they help you appreciate the simple beauty of human interaction. Because at the end of the day, attraction is not just about romance. It is about curiosity. It is about two people discovering that they enjoy each other's presence enough to continue talking. A woman creating a private moment with you is one of the earliest signs that such curiosity may exist. It is not a guarantee, but it is a signal worth noticing. When you learn to recognize these signals, you begin experiencing social life with a new level of awareness. Instead of wondering whether connection is possible, you see it unfolding in real time. And once you develop that awareness, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing attention. You start recognizing it. Another dimension worth understanding about these quiet private moments is the emotional atmosphere they create. When two people step slightly away from the noise of a group, the entire rhythm of interaction changes. Conversations slow down. Voices soften. The constant competition for attention disappears. In that quieter space, people begin revealing small parts of themselves that would never appear in a louder setting. This is why the act of creating a private moment carries so much psychological weight. It allows curiosity to breathe. It allows two people to observe each other more carefully. And it allows something subtle yet powerful to grow between them: comfort. Comfort is the true foundation of attraction, especially for adults who have lived long enough to understand that meaningful relationships are built slowly rather than through dramatic gestures. When a woman invites you into a more personal space within a busy environment, she is testing the emotional temperature of the interaction. She is observing how you behave when the spotlight narrows. This is where maturity becomes a great advantage. Younger men sometimes rush these moments because they feel pressure to prove something. They may try too hard to impress. They may fill every pause with unnecessary words. But a man with life experience knows that calm presence carries far more influence than restless performance. When you respond to that private moment with ease, with attentive listening, with a relaxed smile and genuine curiosity, you send a powerful signal of your own. You are comfortable with connection. That sense of ease is magnetic. People naturally gravitate toward those who make conversations feel simple and natural. Think about the most memorable conversations you have had in your life. They were rarely filled with dramatic lines or rehearsed humor. Instead, they unfolded effortlessly. Both people felt seen and heard. Time seemed to move differently. Those are the moments where relationships truly begin. And the interesting part is that they often start with the smallest gestures. A woman suggesting you step outside for a breath of fresh air during a party. A quiet invitation to grab coffee after a group meeting. A simple comment spoken in a softer tone meant only for you to hear. These gestures create a brief pause in the larger social environment, a pause where two people can focus on each other without distraction. In that pause, attention becomes more personal. Eye contact becomes more meaningful. The conversation begins to reveal layers that group interactions rarely reach. Modern life has made these moments even more valuable. Many people spend large portions of their day interacting through screens, where tone and body language are difficult to read. When people finally meet in person, authentic interaction becomes precious. A private conversation within a crowd allows two people to rediscover something very human, the ability to share attention without interruption. That shared attention builds trust. It builds curiosity. It builds the early stage of emotional connection that every strong relationship requires. This is why it is important to approach these situations with patience and awareness rather than urgency. Attraction is rarely something that must be rushed. It is something that unfolds naturally when both people feel comfortable enough to continue exploring the interaction. When a woman creates a small private moment with you, she is essentially opening a door. Your role is not to force that door wider. Your role is simply to walk through it calmly and see where the conversation leads. Many men underestimate how powerful simple attentiveness can be. Listening carefully to what she says, asking thoughtful questions, and responding with sincerity creates a sense of respect that people remember long after the conversation ends. Respect and curiosity are two of the strongest signals of emotional maturity, and emotional maturity is deeply attractive because it suggests stability. Stability is something many people look for as they move through adulthood. Life brings responsibilities, challenges, and unexpected changes. A person who remains calm and thoughtful in social interactions communicates that they can handle those complexities with balance. That quiet balance often speaks louder than any attempt to impress. Another interesting aspect of these private moments is that they tend to encourage honesty. When two people step away from the group dynamic, they no longer feel the need to entertain an audience. They can speak more openly about their interests, experiences, and perspectives. That openness allows genuine compatibility to reveal itself. Sometimes the conversation deepens naturally. Sometimes both people realize they simply enjoy talking together. And occasionally, those moments grow into friendships or relationships that become meaningful parts of their lives. But none of that happens if the moment is ignored. Awareness is the key that unlocks these possibilities. By learning to recognize when someone chooses to create a more personal space with you, you begin participating more fully in the subtle dance of human interaction. You notice when someone's attention shifts toward you. You recognize when a conversation becomes more personal. And you understand that these signals are invitations to engage with sincerity rather than hesitation. Over time, this awareness transforms how you move through social situations. Instead of feeling uncertain about where you stand with people, you develop a quiet understanding of how connection grows. You see how small gestures lead to longer conversations. You see how shared laughter leads to curiosity. and you see how curiosity sometimes leads to deeper relationships. What once seemed mysterious becomes surprisingly simple. People move closer to those they enjoy being around. When a woman creates a private moment with you in a crowded environment, she is taking a small step in that direction. She is signaling that your presence feels interesting, comfortable, or intriguing enough to deserve more focused attention. Recognizing that step is not about ego. It is about awareness. And awareness allows you to respond with the same openness that created the moment in the first place. In the end, attraction rarely begins with dramatic fireworks. It begins with something much quieter: a shift in attention, a suggestion to step aside, a conversation that continues just a little longer than expected. These moments are easy to overlook, yet they often contain the earliest hints of connection. When you learn to see them clearly, you begin experiencing social life with a sense of curiosity rather than confusion. And that simple shift, moving from confusion to awareness, changes everything about how you meet people, talk with them, and build relationships that feel genuine, relaxed, and deeply human. Hey, my friend, thanks for staying with me until the end of the video. One important thing to remember is this: no single action always means the same thing. A light touch, a lingering glance, or a private conversation by itself doesn't tell the whole story. But when several of these small signals start appearing together, they often reveal a much clearer pattern. In real life, attraction rarely begins with big, dramatic gestures. Most of the time, it grows quietly through small details that many people overlook: a gentle touch, eye contact that lasts just a little longer, or a conversation that keeps going even when there's no real reason for it to continue. And sometimes, when you slow down enough to notice those little moments, you realize something interesting. The connection between two people may have started long before either of you ever said anything about it. So here's my honest advice: don't rush to conclusions based on just one signal. Pay attention to patterns, stay respectful, and give things the space to unfold naturally. When you learn to notice the small details while still respecting the other person's boundaries, your relationships tend to become much more genuine and meaningful. Thanks again for watching. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe so we can keep exploring more insights about relationships, psychology, and how to navigate life with wisdom and confidence. I'll see you in the next video.